Afternoon. Let's wait for my mic to be on. Are we on? Okay, here we go. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Wednesday, June 4th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Public Education. If you all would, I first have to confirm that notice has been sent out regarding this meeting. I've been assured it has. If we would all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will now accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I would like to move that the agenda as printed or modified be approved with the following revisions. Deletion of item 6.02, policy, board policy FGC, bids and quotations, 4-year review, and item 6.04, board policy DC, annual operating budget, 4-year review, and addition of item 8.13, purchases and sale agreement, property Cynthia Street, and item 8.14, FY25, budget transfer vacancies to 308, fund 600K for pools.
Okay. Thank you. It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you. Announcements. All right. First of all, we have a Schumann closure public hearing this afternoon at 5:30 here at Whitney. That's our first hearing. The second hearing will be next Wednesday, June 11th at 5 o'clock. And then Tuesday, June 17th is board millage rate public hearing number 1, pending vote. June 17th at 2 p.m. at a Capital Improvement Committee meeting. Then board millage rate hearing number 2, pending vote, is June 17th at 6 p.m. Board millage rate public hearing number 3, pending vote, is June 25th at 6 p.m. And a special board meeting with recommended millage rate and final adoption Wednesday, June 25th at 6:30 p.m. We have an audit committee meeting on June 26th. Yes? Okay, that is questionable. Stay tuned. We have a Read United Buddies Volunteer Appreciation Thursday, June 26th at 5:30 p.m. at United Way of the Coastal Empire. The district summer schedule. The district continues to seek methods for maximizing building efficiency and fiscal responsibility. In support of this effort, SCCPSS will implement a 4-day work schedule, starting Monday, June 2nd through Friday, July 11th. All district locations will operate on a 4-day work week. July 4th, holiday week, the district will be closed July 1st through July 4th. And our July board meeting is July 9th at 11 a.m. And I missed one. Our Juneteenth holiday, all district facilities are closed, is June 19th. And now we'll have a report from our esteemed superintendent.
Good afternoon. It's exciting to see everyone here, and I am excited also to bring you some good news and some calls for applause. I'll start with the good news report, which is featuring our May Student of the Month. The Superintendent Student of the Month for the month of May is a third grader at Windsor Forest Elementary School. This student arrived from Cameroon, and she hit the ground running, according to her nominator. She has excelled in the classroom, and all who meet her, teachers, staff, and friends, speak very highly of her character and her intelligence. This young scholar is a stellar student, says Margarita McDonald, who nominated her. She sets a high bar for herself in and out of the classroom. She has earned a place on the honor roll and scored in the 95th percentile for iReady reading. She strives to do her best, and she never settles for just completing a task. She always attempts to face any challenges given to her with an open mind and great effort. She is described as a leader and as someone who models good behavior by being attentive and working well with others. Outside of school, our student is active in American Heritage Girls, and she wants to be a paleontologist. She loves reading nonfiction books about dinosaurs. I don't even think I knew what a paleontologist was when I was that age. When asked what motivates her to strive for academic success, our Student of the Month said, "My motivation for academic success is my parents. They encourage me to read by taking me to the library every Saturday. They also help me study for at least 1 hour after school each day. Please, please help me in congratulating Mrs. Peace Tangle, the Superintendent Student of the Month."
Well done.
Peace will be taking home several gifts from our sponsors, including Members First Credit Union, Advertising Specialties, Georgia Southern University, Gulfstream, and a $100 check from Savannah Schools Federal Credit Union. In addition, Peace and her English Language Arts class will receive copies of her favorite book donated by our sponsor, E. Shaver Bookseller. Again, let's congratulate Peace, but let's also take the time to acknowledge her family. So if anyone from her family is here, please stand. Thank you so much for all you have contributed to her. And let's also take an opportunity to recognize the Windsor Forest Elementary family, her nominator, and her principal, Ms. Margarita McDonald and Ms. Gilbert Collins. Awesome. We'll keep the applause coming with several other positive news stories from our district. Let's take a moment and congratulate the class of 2025. We proudly marched, and I shook the hands of over 2,100 students across the stage at In-Market Arena last month. It was both exhausting and exhilarating at the same time. We appreciate the teamwork and the effort that went into making each graduation ceremony special for our students, staff, and family. And hats off to the National Merit Scholarship winner, William Mayer from Savannah Arts Academy. You may recognize his name, as William was the star student for Savannah Arts this year as well. Way to go, William. The Savannah Arts Academy girls soccer team has a lot to celebrate as they finished the GHSA Class AA runners-up after falling to Pike County in a 6-5 thriller, but still a lot to be proud of, in making it to that state championship game. It was the first ever state title appearance for the Savannah Arts Academy girls soccer team. The Panthers fought the entire way. In the second half, they found themselves down 5-3, and they scored 2 straight goals to tie it back at 5. But Pike County went on to score and took home the title. It was a thriller to the end, and we are very proud of our Lady Panthers. Students, families, and educators also gathered last month to celebrate the next generation of individuals committing to careers in the classroom as educators during our first ever Future Educator Celebration and Signing Day. Savannah-Chatham students signed letters of intent to become teachers. The event was part of the Georgia Department of Education's Teach in the Peach campaign and is building partnerships with local colleges to help build a pipeline of future educators. Once again, Woodville-Tompkins High School is flexing that financial achievement muscle. They placed first in the Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association annual Capitol Hill Challenge. The Capitol Hill Challenge is a nationwide 16-week finance education program where teams from each congressional district invest a hypothetical $100,000 to learn the value of the capital markets as they work together to maximize the return on those portfolios. This is a major accomplishment as thousands of teams competed in all 50 states in Washington, D.C. The top 10 teams will actually visit Washington, D.C. next week and will be honored at a reception in recognition of their achievement. Please join me in congratulating Lady Laura Bahima Diaz from Woodville-Tompkins Business Education. She's an instructor, and the instructor John Cook for this achievement. The student is not here. Oh, the student is here. Excellent. So we would love for her to come up and be congratulated and acknowledged. Our economic future in this country is in good hands. John Cook, the instructor, is not here, but our student was joined by her principal, Mr. McGuire. Congratulations to the graduates of the Junior Police Academy. Over 60 middle school students completed the program during the school year, and they were recognized recently at a ceremony followed by dinner at Woodville-Tompkins High School. Sheriff Richard Coleman delivered a stirring keynote. Thank you to all the Board of Education Police Department for leading this program. A big round of applause also goes to our Human Resources team. They have recently brought home the hardware from the Georgia Association of School Personnel Administrators. SCCPSS has been honored with multiple best-in-class awards from GASPA. A silver award in employee handbooks, a gold award in retention practices, and a gold award in technology advancements. These recognitions are a testament to the dedication and collaboration of our team. An additional award goes to our district office and schools communications team. Once again, the team took top honors in the NSPRA National School Communication Awards. The 2025 honors for our communications team includes the following: an Award of Excellence for our newly launched public website, an Award of Merit for videos, specifically the Beach High School Medical Clinic video, our eSplost video series. Our Mediation Center Positive Peer Influence Program was also awarded this merit award. An additional award of merit went to our magazine, In Case You Missed It, which is a monthly digital magazine. And we received an honorable mention award for Video Chinchillin, which featured Islands High School's VET program and our social media campaign that focused on attendance. Miss School, Miss Out. Way to go, communications team. You make us very proud in this work to tell our story. And finally, we would like to announce 2 individuals who are being recognized in the inaugural Maintenance and Operations Professionals of the Year. Elizabeth Eady has been selected for the Operations Team Heavy Hitter of the Year Award for school year 24-25. In her capacity as a head custodian, she is instrumental in ensuring that district facilities are maintained while providing support to multiple facilities across the district in times of need. Congratulations, Ms. Eady, who I believe is here.
Congratulations.
Thank you for all you do. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Thanks so much for your hard work.
All right.
And our next honoree as a heavy hitter for the year from our maintenance department is Mr. John Masterson. John, come on down, Mr. Masterson.
Thank you.
Good job, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And just a little bit more about John's contribution to our district. He is characterized as an exceptional employee, a force multiplier, and a master craftsman. His attention to detail is unmatched and is a testament to his hard work, his dedication, and passion for carpentry. Congratulations, Mr. Masterson, on a job well done. And we have already invited those individuals, but I'd like for them just to stand collectively one more time. They are joined today by their division leader, Mr. John May, his team, as well as many of their peers. And this entire group of people are an often uncelebrated employee group within our district, but they get the job done behind the scenes, and we could not run our school district without them. So thanks to all of you. We have concluded professional senate, so this month I will not be passing on the mic to a report, but we will continue with our agenda with our board matters.
Y'all don't have to leave. Y'all don't have to.
Thank you for all y'all do.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent, Mr. Board President, board officers, members of the board. As we continue on your agenda and move into your board matters section, we have a few policies for review. These are first reads for the Board of Education. Your first one leading off is item 6.01. This is Board Policy BBD, which is Board School Superintendent Relations. You'll see that one line has been added in this policy section. This comes on the recommendation of the board attorney to ensure that we are more in line with statutory requirements under the fundamental roles of boards in governance. First read.
Dr. Hoskins-Brown?
Thank you. I asked the superintendent about the intent of this addition. There are so many conversations that could be considered a personnel matter. Is it possible to have the statute put inside the policy for high flyers who may want to read the statute so that they know what not to do?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. There is a general statutory code that does list the additional components that have certain governance impacts. One area that is very important in there, and I think that we could consider if it's to the board's purview, it does not limit the board from forwarding on matters of personnel concerns to the superintendent. And that is stipulated as much in the statutory code section. So feedback received, and we will make sure that we update that on second read.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you for this addition. I just had some questions about the document in general. For me, it gave some gray areas. And I was trying to see if there's a way we can possibly add more clarity. For example, one stanza says, in order to keep the board informed, the superintendent will notify board members as promptly as possible of the happenings that's taking place. And my question is there a rule of thumb as to what method we could take to disseminate that information? If that was put in this document, maybe it'll add a bit more clarity. There's another line that says members of the board from time to time may request information about various aspects of school district operations. And then it says to not be excessive. I believe that to add clarity, we should find out what excessive is and what that looks like so that the lines would not be crossed and boundaries could be set across the board. So I was just trying to submit or suggest that we find a way to clarify those items a bit more.
Yeah, and if I could ask for, or submit for the board's continued review in this particular area, much of what you're talking about is memorialized in the communication protocol that the board and superintendent have. So that's almost like a secondary administrative type document. It's a governance document that is between the board and the superintendent and how these things are managed. We'll say that one thing we do want to be careful of as we review the recommendation for any further revisions is not to write a policy so specific that you get into a ministerial duty type thing. So if you say in this policy that we're going to say that the superintendent will use a text method only or a text method to notify the board and she's not available to get to a text and you receive it another way, but if it's written that way in policy, then it becomes a violation. So having certain levels of flexibility is helpful here, but I will say that also is further described in further detail in the way the board writes and agrees with the superintendent through the communication protocol.
I'll resend the communication protocol out to everyone.
You may continue.
Okay, that was first read. Again, we'll bring it back in July for second read adoption. The next item on the board's agenda today is policy FEB. This is item 603. FEB, you'll note a few changes in this particular one. The spirit of this one came through after recent statutory changes that required when boards of education, school districts are going through changes in their construction, for example, of new construction schools, that during the design phase that they shall consult with emergency preparedness agencies or law enforcement agencies during the design of a school. And that's obviously to support the work that we do from a safety perspective. So that has been added. We also did cite the State Board of Education rule that defined that further, and that is a primary reason for bringing these revisions. First read.
Mr. Kachmeier, then Ms. Grabowski.
Is there GSBA guidance on what consult means? And where I'm going is we should start that conversation now with Chatham County and the city and all the municipalities about what that should look like. We have a lot of things going on. I don't know when the effective date is, but we have things that are in, 90% design. And I'd hate for somebody in a small municipality somewhere to say, no, I want you to turn it this way and get rid of this wall and et cetera. So let's just be proactive about this, please.
Yeah, and I will say that we are in regular constant, or not constant, but regular communication with the folks at the Georgia Department of Education. Mickey Schuber is a very great resource for us. We talk to him and his team in the Georgia Department of Education Facilities Division often, and we'll continue to get guidelines and feedback from them.
Ms. Grabowski.
So I actually looked at the state code on this one to better understand the context around it, and understand that we're doing what we have to do. But just as we've had many discussions recently about our layered security, that it's not only physical barriers, there are other methods of our security protocol, and that we also want to obviously have very secure facilities, but also maintain the strong civic presence of our schools, that they are places that are welcoming and centers of the community, so there is a balance. So I don't know that if it belongs in the policy or not. I just don't want it to be portrayed that because it's so specific in this policy and there's really no other criteria given in the educational specifications other than security, that it gets weighted so heavily that other considerations are inadvertently minimized. Because in looking at the state law, in the state statute, there's a lot of criteria that are in there. So I just would put that forward for thought and consideration, and happy to talk more offline. But
Yep.
I
understood.
just offer that as comment.
And we certainly don't want to give the impression that nothing else matters when it comes to the construction or design of a school, specifically as this is written, sounding like safety is the one and only thing. You'll note that there are language references in the policy that do talk about the instructional needs of students, so we could bolster that more.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, continue.
Continuing on the board's agenda today, we do have additional policy reviews. We have item 6.05. This is board policy GBRB, professional personnel time. A number of revisions here, a robust review of this particular policy area. This will come back to the board for a second read. We'll say that the primary driver for the work that we did in this policy area was really to address and provide an opportunity for the superintendent to expand on the work that we're doing in providing remote work guidelines. We learned quite a bit about remote work through the COVID years. We've gotten better at it, but we do need to create stronger administrative guidelines, and this policy basically says that the board would authorize the superintendent to provide remote work guidelines, and we need to do better work on that for clarity in what we're doing day in and day out in the daily operational fabric of our school district. So the remote work was a component. You'll also see that there was language in here that was added and tweaked and changed a little bit, with the primary driver being how we address our clock in and clock out procedures, and particularly in the area of how we are providing clarity on how we treat exempt staff in the area of clocking in and clocking out. And you'll note that the key language in there is putting that more as a management component, and salaried individuals to be treated as salaried personnel, professional personnel, and that the work for clocking in and clocking out is really for an informational tracking purposes. So again, remote work and clock in and clock out procedures are the primary drivers in this policy revision. This is a first read. We'll come back on the July 9th for second read adoption.
Ms. Grabowski.
Personally, I am very happy to see the revisions in this for our salaried employees. When I first joined the board, I was actually quite surprised at the fact that we had our professionals, many of whom have doctorates and masters and are responsible for entire school campuses, but are still having to clock in and clock out. And I know that has been a point of, we want our teachers and administrators to be treated or to be recognized as professionals, and I think this is one simple step that we can take to also treat them as professionals. So I am very happy and very supportive of seeing this modification. Thank you.
Dr. Howard Hall.
Yes, I'm just going to read number 2 so I can just get good understanding. It says classified employees. That was added because it used to just say employees, right? Classified employees who are unable to get to work or who arrive late to work may use personal leave, vacation days, or have his or her pay reduced for the time missed. That's for classified. So in other words, on the flip side, for certified staff who are unable to get to work or who arrive late do not have to use personal leave, they do not have to use vacation time, and their pay will not be reduced for the time missed. So I guess my question is, if they leave early, sometimes employees have things to do, they leave early. So we're saying that they don't have to complete any type of leave form if they have to leave early, other than if they're sick. So if they leave early and they're ill, would they have to document that to properly document their sick time?
Yes, absolutely. They need to document that time by filling out by filling out a leave form. The intent of this was to not penalize people who need to leave a few minutes early or a few minutes late. The intent is not to say you can come and go as you please and you don't ever have to do a leave form. So if that is not interpreted, we might need to tighten up the language there.
We'll take a closer look, and I know Mr. Ray has got a response as well, but for clarification, I do see that you're speaking of the number 2 under the delayed opening section, is that right? Yeah.
Yes, because it says what the classified are allowed to do, but it doesn't say anything about certified, but if you're reading it, you know it's just the opposite. So for clarity, you might want to include
Yeah,
the benefits of the
look at it.
certified staff.
We'll look at it, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along in your agenda, the next item for the board's review is Board Policy JBA. This is compulsory attendance ages. This is a 4-year review, and you'll note that this is really driven by how we manage attendance with students. And this will be coming back for the board's second review in July. I will say that much of the components that you see in here is our work to be stronger and more intentional in how we manage attendance on the site level for students, ensuring the importance and the value of being present at school, but also having procedures in place that account for options for students who may have issues for various reasons to have credit recoveries or recover attendance components, or to be stronger and more clear in how we manage an attendance waiver. So you will note that in your existing policy, there were already references to attendance waiver committees. We've gone through this and very intentionally looked at how we can streamline that and be more clear on how that committees function and how that data is utilized in making decisions. So that's the driver behind this policy area. We'll also add that behind this, our team has an administrative document as well that they are using to provide administrators and personnel more guidance in how to properly apply the components of this policy. So this comes to you as a first read. We'll hear feedback and bring back any subsequent revisions or final policy adoption in July.
Dr. Howard Hall.
The 5-day remote learning piece, my concern is for teachers putting additional work on them when they're having to host a virtual classroom as well as an online classroom simultaneously. So that's my concern with the workload that we're adding to teachers by including this 5-day remote learning policy.
Yeah, just so for clarification, the remote participation option, the work expected of the teacher is asynchronous, so there will not be any live instruction provided during that time while students are participating away from the building.
What role will the teacher play when they go on that platform, when they log in on the platform to complete assignments? The teacher still has to make sure that that work is done. So will they be notified, email or something?
Yep, so essentially, the student is working independently during that time away from the building, and the teacher will utilize the learning management system to provide the work for students to complete.
Will they be provided training for that, or are
So-
they already familiar with doing that?
Yes, ma'am, that learning management system currently exists, and teachers are familiar with how to use that.
Okay.
Ms. Grabowski.
I just want to again thank the team for their presentation during informal last month. It was so helpful to have that context well in advance of the revision of this policy to really be able to more fully understand and have the time to really think about it before seeing the policy. And then also for the additional changes that were made since the packets originally went out, including the changes to the rubric, which I think, to me, address some of the initial concerns that I had. So I just really appreciate the work that's gone into this. I hope that our students and families will see this as a way for us to be able to continue the journey of academic excellence, recognizing there are sometimes situations that come up that we do need to have flexibility, but hope that this is not something that is abused or misused by any students. And if we see that it is something that is not being utilized with fidelity, that we will be quick to bring it back for revisions to the policy or to the regulation. So look forward to seeing how this all will shake out and continue to work on some of our other remote learning and things that we have been having discussions about. So thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Campbell, Dr. Ringman, Mr. Smith.
I also want to echo Ms. Grabowski, appreciate the presentation. I think this is one of the most well thought out things I have seen since being on the board. I mean, it is so comprehensive, even down to having a rubric to go off of to decide if they receive a waiver or not. I mean, it's awesome what you did here. One tiny thing, where is it? There's a number 2, the student parent notification of attendance policy. Number 2 there, guardians is misspelled, FYI. And then, let's see. I also had a question on number 8 under the same topic. It says tardiness is a chronic problem in the last bullet. Any way we can maybe define chronic here? Because that was one issue that I sort of struggled with a little bit is when do we consider tardiness, excessive tardiness, an unexcused absence, right? Because mainly just because they're missing classwork and socialization time with their peers. So any way we could maybe define that a little better, maybe quantify it? Maybe. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm in the same area, the student parent notification of attendance policy. It is a nice flow, but we have a lot of shoulds in here. I mean, I can should a lot and never do anything. You know, number 3, the homeroom teacher will call and/or make. The homeroom teacher should maintain documentation of the call. Number 4, the early warning letter should be sent on school letterhead. Well, it doesn't even need to be sent if it's a should. After a week with no response, the 5-day letter should be sent on school letterhead. If the parent guardian does not return the 5, this is number 6, letter acknowledgement, it should be signed upon completion of the home visit. So we do all those shoulds, and then when it gets to the school social worker in number 7, we're like, they must.
Yep.
But they must after given proper documentation, but all the documentation was shoulds.
Optional.
So,
Got it.
yep.
Well taken. I will say that Mr. Butler and I had a conversation as recent as yesterday evening as we continue to mull over this. And we've even talked about what is central office's role. Is there an appeal process? If a parent disagrees with a decision, should it then escalate so that we can monitor whether some of these things are actually in place before? So this continues to be iterative. Your questions and your push have helped us make it better. Literally, I had 2 phone calls yesterday with 2 board members, and immediately we were back at it, trying to tighten up some things. So I appreciate that.
I mean, the thing is, if it's not a must, you're going to have
Right.
some schools that it will be a must because
Right.
you've got an administrator that's
Right.
holding everybody accountable. This holds everybody accountable by the policy so that if a school is not doing it, then that administrator has the ability to hold
Yes.
whoever is supposed to be in the process to it. And then if that school-based administrator is not holding people accountable, then that school-based administrator could be held, yeah.
Got it. Love it. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you so much for this presentation. I just wanted to go backwards for a little while and talk about definitions. The definition of truant, did we come up with that definition, or that was a state definition, correct? Yes. Okay. So originally it was 10 days or more?
That's us.
Yes, so the definition of 10 days was a local provision that we had been working through previously, which was on recommendation from the juvenile courts. And you're also aware that there are statutory requirements that the juvenile courts and other agencies work together on a school truancy and climate protocol document that we are deeply involved with, and we have been for years. And that's typically where that driver on the 10 days came from. However, the statutory law that actually refers to the definition of truant flows through State Board of Education rule where that 5 days is referenced. And that was an area that we've had a lot of discussion on that topic. I'll say I appreciate the support from our in-house counsel, Attorney Dennison, on this one, the great work of the, under Judge Kramer with the Truancy Council Protocol team, the great work of Dr. Quintina Miller-Fields and her team involved with this as well. And we must be in alignment, obviously, with the State Board rule and where that is stated. So we fixed that. Now, there is also the reality in what we know, which is the law then goes further to say that it gets into the point where the truancy is a metric that says you meet the definition of truant. Well, then an action item has to be taken. That's one of the reasons you see all of those requirements on the notices that are written in there that will go to must as opposed to should, and because they are a requirement. In fact, those components are also mentioned in the truancy protocol guidance document that we work with through the juvenile court system. Ultimately, though, it falls to the courts on how they will be able to prosecute and handle the caseload of truant students. You'll see the way it's written. Our work is to try to avoid that.
Gotcha.
In any scenario. So, but in the short answer is we're now in line with how the actual State Board of Education rule defines truancy as 5 days.
Gotcha. So in this definition, again, for clarity, this is not consecutively 5 days. This is if you're absent 5 days throughout the year, you will be classified as truant.
Unexcused.
Unexcused.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
Thank you. I believe that even if we change everything that should in the student parent notification area, there's still going to be a time when it doesn't happen. Just because humans are human and those things happen. So I don't feel strongly about it being changed from must to should, because the likelihood of implementation is probably not going to be very different. People are going to do it when they can and when the documentation is available and when things are not on fire. What I have a greater concern, but if you make it must, that's fine. What I'm concerned about is the request and notification of a waiver, that the deadline for that is the end of the term. And I think that treats the waiver as like a terminal process. If the waiver is declined, then there's no opportunity to revisit any attendance recovery because you've notified them on the last day of the term. That's the deadline that the committee is given. And so if everything happens that you don't find out about attendance because everything that was must still didn't happen in the notification, and you're not finding out until March 30th or April 2nd, and the on-site committee has until the last day of the term to let you know of their decision, you don't have any recourse except summer school. And I think that's just because the policy is built too close to the deadline. So my suggestion is that the deadline for approval of a waiver should come earlier, whether it's April 30th every year, or whether it's 30 days or 21 days before the end of the term, some time that gives a buffer for what our staff do anyway. And we know that our staff work with students who need to make up work, who are making up attendance, and they are working like one-armed paper hangers, trying to get all that done in May to avoid the ultimate consequence for some young people, which is repeating a grade or going to summer school. So we already know they're doing some of that work. Let's alleviate some of that burden by not setting that deadline so close.
Noted. And I think it's important as well to note, and you address this, that students will have an opportunity if they are eligible for an attendance waiver to participate in the attendance recovery options. One of the things that will be important for us to do is to provide guidance to administrators and the attendance teams who will do a lot of the monitoring of this along the way, so that we're not just up against the end of the semester, so that students and families are aware of what needs to be done before that final decision. And so I know that Dr. Watts and I had some conversations as well regarding what could be an appeal process. And I think it's also, if we take a look at the promotion retention policy, there is language there that currently provides families an opportunity to appeal the promotion, which this is the piece that would trigger that in the promotion retention policy. So we'll take a look at that.
Thank you. I think that's really helpful, and I'm confident that you all can address it well. I think there's going to be some families that there's going to be absences, and they're just going to be at the mercy of the policy. And then there are going to be some other folks that there might be some extraordinary experience, maybe some travel abroad experience or some other special space camp or internship or training or something that the parents will assume should meet the waiver and then doesn't, and then you have all kinds of issues. So I appreciate that thought.
Ms. Campbell, then Ms. Grabowski.
I believe Dr. Hoskins-Brown actually brought this up in our mail, and it was addressed, but I guess I wanted to sort of ask the question a little differently about the grades 1 through 12 having a 70 or higher in the class for which they're seeking an attendance waiver, 70 being the cutoff. And I understand the rationale being, if that's our baseline for pass-fail, that makes sense that we would have, it's congruent. But I think bringing it back to our audit committee with the attendance audit and some of the shocking sort of revelations, I think, was that one issue that we thought might arise is that when kids are doing well in school, they should still be rewarded if they are not there all the time, right? So not as much a student waiver like they had, crazy things happening in their life and or great experiences to enjoy and miss school, but maybe, they did well at home or whatnot online, I don't know. But if 70 is the cutoff, that's really not exceptional. And plus they've missed out on the socialization with their peers that I think is so key to education, not just the books and the learning, but the peer socialization. So I would love it if we would just maybe think a little bit more about 70. 70 seems so low to me. The other thing that someone brought up, Dr. Miller-Fields, and it reminded me, the first page, third paragraph down, students assigned by the local board for the alternative school, regardless of suspension or expulsion, shall be required to attend school as prescribed. Okay, so does this mean that even though transportation isn't necessarily offered because it's not available, that we are going to hold them to a standard for attendance going forward?
We currently do. If a student is opting into a choice school, they know that they're taking that option
Right.
without transportation, so they are held to the same bar as it relates to attendance.
But what about if they are, it mentions suspension or expulsion, so I'm thinking alternative school, like maybe they have to go and then return back maybe to their neighborhood school at some point. Are we going to make sure that they have the same attendance requirements?
At
Yeah,
the alternative school?
Yes.
yes.
But we
Yes.
don't provide transportation to students for building bridges.
We do not, but there are some existing structures in place to support students who may not be able to participate in the in-person learning environment, so that that support is already available.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Cross?
So I shared some of Ms. Campbell's concerns with the team, and I do think, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the attachment with the revised rubric. It does help a lot in making that differentiation, because same comment. I do think, I would like to see it kind of under the attendance waiver. It does, if you don't have the rubric, which the general community will not, it appears, it could appear through this that 70 is enough to ask for a waiver. And I again, understand, so I think maybe we could tweak the language, and I know you have, but I think maybe a few more tweaks that say the minimum bar is a 70, but there are other requirements as well to be able to receive a waiver. And then to Dr. Hoskins-Brown's point about the timing, I agree and think maybe if the language was modified, that the, and now I've lost where that is, that the application, waiver request must be submitted no later than 2 weeks prior to the end, and encourage people to submit them as early as they know they may need it. And then also, on the flip side of that, that the school would be required to provide a response within 2 weeks, so that if they know they're traveling abroad or whatever else, then the family knows whether or not they've received that attendance waiver in advance, and maybe that will address some of those concerns.
That is the guidance that we are developing for
Okay.
administrators to provide them more specifics around that window of time and what that response time would. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Howard Hall?
Yes, when I think about the 70%, I think about the connection between attendance and a promotion policy. So that is why that 70% is more likely in there, because 70% is passing, and passing is a part of the promotion policy. And since there's a direct correlation between attendance and promotion, that is why it should be in there as 70%.
But the attendance waiver is supposed to be something that is, it's not a guarantee. It is something that you earn the right to receive because you are proficient, which is more than just meeting the bare minimum, is my argument. Proficient is not just meeting the minimum standard. Proficient is
Proficient is
excelling
minimum.
above. No. I actually looked it
Proficient.
up in the dictionary.
Right, well, no, if proficient, if a child is proficient, 70, in other words, a C is average. And it might be, it might sound as below average to some people, but some people work hard to get that 70%. You don't know what they may have learning disability or other things, situations that's going on within the home or the community, and they worked hard and earned that 70%, not saying that we're content with it, but for that individual child, it is important that we don't negate the fact that a 70% is more than average for some students, because we all say continuously one size doesn't fit all. Everybody's
Absolutely.
not going to make it 100 or have a 90 or 80, and they're going to be your 70 percentile students, and they shouldn't be punished and don't have the opportunities to benefit from that waiver because of a 70%.
And I think in the educational setting, proficiency may have a different connotation than when proficient is used in general terms. I literally looked it up in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, which it defines it as above average. So I think there may be a different context in the way in which the educational community might use proficiency and the way that the general term of proficient is interpreted by many. And if there's that much consternation about what the word means, then maybe we need to use a different word.
And I think just for consistency
But
of
it's still in here.
language in our policy, our promotion and retention, the 70 to 79 does say needs improvement. And so while it is passing, we acknowledge, and we've already defined what those grade bands are in our policy. So it does allow us to be more consistent with
So
that.
proficiency on the rubric is in reference to their student's performance on a standardized test, not their grade.
Okay, so it's out of the rubric, it's not out of the policy or the regulation.
Got it. We spent so much time on the rubric.
Yeah, so that's, what I'm just saying, let's make sure that those changes are reflected in the policy and the regulation. I was thinking that this had been updated as well on board docs, so,
Okay, Ms. Campbell, then Ms. Hall.
Super quick. I think part of the reason why I'm with Ms. Grabowski here with the proficiency versus with the 70, and I totally understand what Dr. Howard Hall is saying as well. But I think when you see kindergarten right above it, which it's kindergarten, so I'm not going to make a thing about kindergarten, okay? But I do think that when it says having developing or higher in class, I think of immediately science of reading and how we're testing whether kids can read now again, not kindergarten, but where they can read at grade level to move on and progress, and the damage that can be done if they keep progressing without knowing how to read at grade level. So developing then, and then seeing 70 or higher beneath it made me think, is 70 really what we're aiming for here? At least if it's a benefit to you that you're getting a waiver because you missed so much school, so.
We're going to have to address this within our larger work around around promotion, retention, and grading. But for the purposes of getting this out the door, we try to align ourselves with current policy. But we have bigger work to do, and then we may have to circle back to this.
I'm interested in something Mr. Butler said about the building bridges that I don't think I really thought about before. Mr. Butler is saying that if I'm at Building Bridges Middle and I cannot transport myself to school, that I can do online learning at home during the entire time that I'm at Building Bridges. Is that correct?
We have built in that flexibility to accommodate those students and families that have transportation challenges.
So it's up to us to decide if something poses a credible challenge. I'm just thinking, I'm thinking the whole reason for us having these alternative programs is to build the social, moral fabric of the child who has been taken from his home school, so that if I can stay at home and do my online learning and there's no socialization or interaction with my peers, I'm just wondering if we're not kind of fooling ourselves as to what the benefit of the whole situation is, if in fact I can do this as a homeschooler. Just something that
You are naming the obvious. However, this is the last chance for many kids.
Okay.
And we can't provide them transportation currently. Let me just say, currently, we do not.
And we can't because of our decisions that we can't. That's what you're saying. Our decision was that we can't.
Right, we
Okay.
cannot as of today. So if we don't provide them with the opportunity for remote learning, then we are in essence putting a
out of
child
school.
in a very, we're expelling them at that
We're
point.
expelling them, that's what
So
we're
I
doing.
think
Okay.
we understand everything you're saying, that it does not really achieve what it could achieve if they were having some in-person time, but we're trying to also keep those students engaged and get them back into the
Okay.
regular school setting.
Well, like you said, we have a lot of work to do. Okay, thank you.
I just want to make sure, because I don't want anybody to take what Ms. Hall said the wrong way. We have not decided not to bus
That's
these
all the
children. It's
time.
inabilities. It is the inability for us to find the workforce at this time. We want to, so I just didn't want you to be misquoted that we've decided not to bus these kids. I don't think anybody on the board voted to say, hey, we're not going to try to bus. We just don't have bus. We got buses. We got gas. We just don't have enough bus drivers. So I think all of us, it's an inability right now to bus.
And I continue to think that there are ways that we can do it.
I
But
do
gotta
too,
keep pushing the
yeah.
team to get there. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you for that dialogue. We will take all of it into consideration and bring you back a revision in July. Moving on, your agenda item 6.07 is an action item for the Board of Education. We do have a modification to the board's previously approved schedule of regular meetings for 2025. And this also includes some meetings that included the budget process. So we have certain schedule conflicts that have come up that require modifications to the adopted calendar of meetings. And this includes a change in the September 2025 regular meeting. These revisions are posted to board docs and have been provided to the board in advance. In summary, it moves the September 3rd meeting to September the 2nd, remains an evening meeting, moves July 11th millage rate hearings 1 and 2 to June 17th at the same times, moves the June 17th millage rate hearing number 3, 6 p.m., and special called meeting to adopt the budget and millage rate at 6:30 p.m. to June 25th. Thus be it resolved that the board does now approve the revised 2025 Board of Education annual calendar of meetings.
Have a motion? I mean,
I'm trying to figure out what I'm missing on September 3rd. Why we're moving from Wednesday to Tuesday.
we couldn't have a quorum that day.
Okay.
All right, so I'll accept the motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Yes. Okay, there being no more discussion? Okay. All in favor with your grimaces? All right, thank you.
Next item on the board's agenda is item 6.08. This is a recommendation for professional services consulting contract requested to be pulled from consent, and it is now placed into the Board of Education matters under item 6.08. This is an action item of the board that is requesting the approval of a professional services contract and also a subsequent transfer of monies. Thus be it resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent that the board does approve contract to the firm of Alvarez and Marcel Public Sector Services, LLC, to provide professional financial assessment consulting services at a total cost of $285,000. And be it further resolved that the board also will approve upon recommendation of the superintendent a budget transfer to support this action.
I'll accept a motion to approve. Move. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
Yes, I asked that this be pulled from the consent agenda because of the size of the contract and no indication that there had been competition for this award. So I would like some public discussion on whether or not this is kind of a sole source is not the right word, but whether or not the availability of individuals who do this kind of work is so narrow such that we didn't advertise this and have some competition in getting this work done.
So the approach on this particular one was under the purview of what is stipulated in our policy under procurement that provides various mechanisms for soliciting contracts, and one of them is the provision of this was determined as a professional service, which provides the recommendation of award under a particular contract. Mr. Jackson, I believe, can share a little bit more on the basis of that contract. I'm not sure if it's statewide. We can verify that for you if applicable. But the provision allows for, under the procurement of the superintendent, to make the determination to move forward with a recommendation of a contract of an identified professional service. And that's what this particular area is. I do know that in this process and looking at this particular vendor, that we did vet that extensively with the board counsel and attorneys to verify that their services that they do provide do fall under that component of definition of a defined professional service. So it was upon, again, the recommendation of the superintendent to move forward with this company. As I understand, they are ready to go, basically, and that they're poised well to do this work for us. So the determination was made under that provision under our procurement policy.
Thank you, that's understood. But even in the materials from the company, they have all of these individuals that they say may work on the project and may change, so we don't even know who the principals are. So again, I'm asking, on what basis was this company such the best choice that we did not consider any others or send it out for competition? I understand we can do things without a competition, but it's $250,000. There are lots of companies that would love for us to call them and say, hey, we want you to do this for $250,000, and there'll be no RFP. I just want to know what the thinking was. Is it that there's just not that many people who do this work, and this was the right company to do it?
There was review of other organizations, but in order to meet the scope that I was interested in, and I believe we need organizationally, this met the bar. This organization met the bar. So there was internal vetting, but not a formal RFP process.
Okay. So this is a uniquely positioned company?
Based on what the desire of what we want to have to be looked at and what they bring to the table, I would say yes.
What I wanted was to hear from you if had you had previous dealings with this firm, and so your recommendation is based on your pleasure with their past performances, or, but you're saying that you did an internal vetting of this?
I do have experience with this firm from another organization, but the work that we're doing here is very different than how that organization was leveraged in another location.
I would just first like to thank Dr. Hussins-Brown for pulling this so we'd have this conversation. We've been having some, I think, very fruitful conversations on our processes on awarding contracts, and we've discussed about how more transparency can be built into these pieces of paper in certain ways, like when we name out all the different people. And maybe this is, another one of those growth experiences to help us, because sometimes I look through this and before Dr. Hussins-Brown called me, I was like, oh yeah, whoop, you get blind to numbers when you start adding 2 commas. And this is just 1 comma, but if we had, because you're saying we're using a policy that allows us to select because it's under a certain clause, if there were a portion, utilizing policy whatever, clause, I know it gets tedious, but I think once it's set up, we're going to have a lot of rinse and repeats. I feel like somebody has a lot of this where it's like plug in, plug in, plug in, I hope. And it's not all just blank sheets of paper that you're starting when you write these up.
Talked about the need to have templates.
Yeah,
so
but that you would have a template that if this is the way that this was procured, here it is, so that, first of all, it leads us back to that policy that all of you are in every day, so that when we have questions amongst each other, we can be like, oh, they're using this policy, let me go back. Do I still agree with that policy or not? Should we have a bigger conversation? But then also, if anybody from the outside looks into it, there's stuff there already that I would hope would lead them also to answer some questions. And furthermore, if we're looking back, nobody's going to take the time to watch this meeting again to have this conversation. But if you were to look back on this 6 months from now, we'd all be able to remember what that process was to get to the point of awarding this contract. Yeah.
I'll also add, timing was an element in making this decision. If we go through an RFP process, we likely wouldn't be launching this for several more months. So it's going to delay our ability to get started. So if it's the board's, pleasure, we can go through an RFP process, but it will just delay the work that I feel is necessary to position us so that during next year's budget cycle, we are coming to the table with even more clarity and transparency around our internal capacity and how our finance work.
Ms. Hall?
This whole situation with this Alvarez company, I really thought about it, and because usually I am one to always want as much competitiveness as we can possibly get when we're dealing with our contracts. But then I thought, well, we're saying to Dr. Watts, we want a consulting service to come in and help do a A to Z look at our financial structure. So we're the legislators here, we want that. And we're saying that we're leaving the operations up to you. So I'm kind of, you know, Dr. Levette always used to say, all right, you're asking me to clean the house, but I get to decide whether it's Fabuloso or AJ, you know.
I've heard that.
So in this situation, that's why I asked, had you had some excellent work with this company so that, because $285,000 is a lot of money. And you're saying, yes, you
Just in
believe
a
that they
different
can do what
context
we
and
need.
Doing different work, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Again, because this is good conversation. I think I hope we get to templates on these things so that we don't have ones that are written differently, yeah. And like, if it was like, click, this contract was awarded this way by this, and then if it is this type where it's we want to get this done, there's a blurb that besides just, and be it resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent, it actually has like a precursor that says, the superintendent wants to do X, Y, and Z with a little bit of that backstory, I think would also just, boom.
And I've taken note of ones that you all have said we've done well. So we need to go back and study those to figure out how we can make this a little bit more consistent so that every time we're not starting from scratch. So I 100% agree.
Okay, Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
So I support this work being done. I'm in a workplace where this kind of large assessment has needed to be done. We have done it a different way using another professional approach. Small organization, so not the same price tag as this one. So I support the work. I look forward to the outcomes. I'm going to be voting no because I didn't like the process, but I'm going to be really excited when you get it done, and I'm going to read it. But I just think it's important that we, I wish we would have done it differently, but I do think that this is what we need. And from what they described, they seem able to do it, and you're familiar with their work.
Understood.
More discussion? There being none. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you.
That concludes the Board of Education matters for this board meeting. Turning over the agenda to the board president, onto your consent agenda.
Okay, I will accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Moss, I would like to move that the agenda as printed or modified be approved with the following revisions: deletion of 7.17 RFP 24-21 band uniforms.
Oh, okay. Yes. That's moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay. Yes. Okay, yeah, all in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Thank you. All right, I'll accept a motion. Oh, no, that's the consent agenda. All right, here we go. Financials.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
The financials that were in your packet this month cover our year-to-date numbers through April 30th this year, and that's 83% of our year. For our Fund 100 general fund revenues, our local property taxes are currently at 71.7% of budget, which is lower than we were this time last year at 73.1%. The total general fund actual revenues are at 76% of our current budget, which is lower than 76.1% last year. Our general fund expenditures, our actual expenditures for teachers are at 68.8% of our current modified budget, and that's lower than the expected 83% of budget for at this point of the year. And other support salaries are at 75.4%, which is also lower than the expected range between 80 to 83%. Our total fund, general fund actual expenditures are at 69.26% of our budget as compared to 73.9% last year. There are nothing additional that we have to discuss on any of our other funds, and if we have any questions at this time, I'd entertain them.
Yes. Ms. Campbell?
I just have a clarifying question. For transportation, line 40 here, it says we're at 6.7%. What is that? Yeah.
That's a small budget that's in the general fund just for transportation. That's not the transportation for, like the transportation department in operations.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Oops.
Okay. Good afternoon. The first section of our report has the program schedule, and I'm not going to necessarily go through this in detail. We've talked about this quite a lot. But again, just to reinforce that we do have a plan that we work through. This is our roadmap, and it has all of the projects, the remaining E3, E4, E5 projects in it. And as we start initiating them, then we can put more detail into them. Some of those are, you know, just kind of sketchy in the back, but not necessarily carved in stone, but a plan for us to proceed. The next section is the budget. And again, you've seen this report a number of times, a cash flow report. The most important number that you're looking at is down there in the bottom in the right-hand corner, indicating that our expenditures are all covered by our proceeds, and we're not spending any more money than what we are expecting and have brought in E3. E4, similar situation, as we work now to the conclusion of at least the proceed part of E4. And so we know that in another month, we're expecting E4 proceeds to end. We would go into E5. We saw this coming for quite some time. We consequently have carefully planned the projects that we will be able to complete in E4. That plan has been laid out. Proceeds have been laid out, and they also now equal zero. So this E3 and E4 is on budget. Took the activities that we need to do within the next 2 months, and all of the things, the new buildings that we have to get ready, renovations, moves, etc., Again, we've been keying up to this point for quite some time. We're geared up, we're ready, and all of these activities are well underway, and we see nothing right now that will not be able to be accomplished in what we are planning to do this summer. Quickly through the projects, because we've talked about these quite frequently and gotten into more detail with them, but the Windsor Forest High School, of course, is gearing up to open up in August, and furniture is being delivered this week in that building. Bloomingdale, same situation. Contractor is completing his work, his punch list work. You see, just recently, the asphalt paving has been put down. If you drive by there now, you'll see a lot more of the landscaping, the green grass starting to come in play, and finishing up the exterior, interior. All the furniture in the classrooms have been delivered. They're all set up. Those classrooms are all ready to go. So this project also is well in line for being ready for August. At DEH, the completion of that complex, finishing up the athletic complex. The track is the next larger project that needs to get done in there. The asphalt has been poured. This picture doesn't show that recently has been laid. So waiting to cure that out so they can put the track in early July. We anticipate to have a CO on that facility and be ready for the first football game. Inside the building, the black box has been converted into CTA labs, and that work is pretty much completed too, and we're waiting for furniture and equipment to be delivered for that. Henderson Forming, construction's been done for some time now. They have also finished up putting all of their furniture in, and soon will be moving the teachers' boxes and their materials back into the building, but this one is all ready to go in August. J.G. Smith, the classes obviously have ended. Teachers have packed everything up. They're ready to get moved over to Montgomery. This project is ready to get started. J.G. Smith in construction. Demoing the old cafeteria, because that's one of the major parts of the new project, is new cafeteria, new front entry area. Montgomery, same situation, lots of finishes going on in there, getting the site ready for the bus and the parent drop-off, and of course they'll be receiving all of the J.G. Smith, and so have that school ready for them to move in August. Islands High School, we just last week bid this expansion work. We had excellent results and got a very good bid. We came in under budget with this one, and so this will be awarded at your next board meeting. Work is going to be going on throughout the coming year, 100% complete for football in 2026. However, they do need to build the team rooms and the new restrooms, much larger home grandstand area. All of that can be done and still maintain either football, soccer, track, whatever else is going to be scheduled for that complex. At Georgetown, same situation as J.G. Smith. Teachers have backed up. They're ready to move over and occupy Largo Tibet in August. Largo has just some minor renovations going on. That's finishing up well. And Georgetown, is ready to start their major construction project, a new gymnasium, a complete re-roof, and in fact, later on in the agenda, you will be looking at awarding the first part of this project, which will consist of long lead items and the demolition work so that that work can get started. And we are expecting to have the GMP ready in August for that board approval. Hubert is a project that you're going to be hearing about a lot for the next year plus. Design is just completing. We're expecting to have this project out for bid in July, and hopefully we'll have an award for September. Then we can get started with the renovations work for Hubert. Same thing with the Alternative Ed Center. This has been in design for quite some time now. They're pulling the rest of that together, and we're going to be looking for the bid documents to be out in October and targeting for a November board award, and then the work in this school can get started and have that ready for late '26. At Garden City, another one that we'll be talking about a lot as in the next years we go through, just awarded the design on this to SSOE. That contract's being finalized, and we'll put this project in design, anticipating that we'll have bid documents early in '26, and that this project would be able to get started with construction also in about a year from now. And then just a number of other things that we're doing. Obviously, the E5, just going to get started with West Chatham High School. In fact, the RFP for the design professional services is going to be advertised on Sunday. And this is going to be a pretty extensive process that we're going to expect to go through in order to select the right design professional for it. We'll be getting proposals, we'll be shortlisting, and then from the short list, we'll go into interviews, and from there, they will be the evaluations and the final selection. That will not be until maybe like September. So, Bull Street, again, that project is going to follow right behind in West Chatham. We do have an abatement survey completed, and so we want to get, obviously it has to be emptied out before we do that, and then get all of the historic and programmatic input that is going to get started here shortly. HVAC projects, continue with those. Roofing projects, Johnson will be bid later this summer. And high school fields, Savannah High School, we are putting that project into design for the artificial turf for the baseball field. And so we're going to really push that one along here into the summer and the fall. Number of other projects, of course, we've gone through these in the past before. Just to mention that New Hampstead, that epoxy floor is proceeding right now through the summertime. And at the gymnasium renovations for Savannah Arts, we are really happy that Repurpose is going to be involved in that project. Johnson Locks, our general contractor, is going to put them on as a subcontractor, and they're going to get started with that work, I think, next week too, and they do not expect that's going to extend the schedule at all. So we're really happy that that is going to be able to occur.
Yes, first of all, Dr. Howard Hall.
Mr. Cashmore has been very outspoken about athletic complexes from the time I got on the board. And he's mentioned about all of the high schools. And I see every high school with a complex except Woodville-Tompkins. Now, last year, we discussed having a track and field there. Woodville-Tompkins had a state championship track team, and I don't see any progress of what's going on with Woodville-Tompkins as it pertains to an athletic complex like all the other high schools. I know they don't have a football team, and that's based on programming, due to the principal or whatever they decide to do. But what are the plans for Woodville-Tompkins as far as an athletic complex? Because currently we only have a gym out there.
Yeah, and that project is one of the premier projects that we have going for E5. And there's a number of things in upper campus and lower campus that need to be looked at. But back in when we were doing artificial surfaces on those practice fields, we held Woodville-Tompkins back on that plan because that area where we were going to put it was a wetland. And we just didn't feel it was good to be putting an artificial surface and possibly a track on a wetland. And so when we start looking at that project, we have to have that consideration also as to, where the floodplains are. It was in a floodplain, actually. And so, but there is a lot of work and a lot of planning that has to go in Woodville-Tompkins.
So you're saying that there will be an athletic complex, but there's a lot of work to consider, or what are you saying?
I don't know what the full scope of the project will be yet.
I don't know, when does this start? I need to look at the timeline, but we haven't even started a discussion on that
no.
side yet.
No, that one, if you look back,
Right.
it is
Yeah, it got
future.
pushed back
Right.
due to I didn't know anything about, I'm thinking that they were going to have a track field because they have a track team. And so I understand that we're now, going to use those funds for SPLOST 4, but I just would like for us to really begin to think about it and let us know what's going on regarding the design that would happen, because it's the only high school that doesn't have the amenities as other schools,
Yeah.
with the exception of Savannah Arts. And I know there's a different sports program there, but,
They have state track records too.
and they have a state championship too with cross country there at Savannah Arts as well. And as far as the DEH athletic complex, I'm very excited about that. I think the ribbon cutting will be in August. I did have a question regarding it. Just give us some examples of details of the items included in the baseball and softball punch list. You said there's a punch list here. What type of things that's involved with that entails a punch list for the baseball and softball fields?
They look at the press boxes that were built, and there's, masonry that may have to get pointed up or so. You look at the field, there's weeds that are growing in it right now, quite frankly. That's a punch list item. Let's get that thing cleaned
Okay.
up.
Dr. Brinkman.
And forgive me because I missed the last CIC, but I'll probably say a bunch of this next week too. I'll just keep being the squeaky wheel on some things. On the athletic complex, I think y'all probably have definitions. We need to be better at our definitions because I believe, only have 4 athletic complexes. That would be Islands, New Hampstead, Savannah High, and then Groves. All of the other high schools that have fields have practice facilities. So like Jenkins, what is at Windsor, Johnson, those are not athletic complexes because they can't play football at them because they are not to a size. So just knowing when we use words. I know that last slide had fencing. I hope that we've gone back and discussed with board members and everybody on what that fencing looks like before we keep moving forward with that RFP. I don't know. I might have missed that in the last CIC. And then timing, thank you. I'll bring that up. I would love for us, because if we go back and look at most of our eSPLOS, the first 2 years, we're doing a bunch of planning and a lot of collection. And then we have a lot of money, and then it takes us years to spend it. So that pushes everything out. And I know some of that's the capacity of our workforce, and I think we have a great team working, but you can't do it all at once, even if we might have the funds. So I would really, and I'm going to keep saying it until somebody tells me we've looked at it and it's a stupid idea, that we look at spending some money up front to bring other people in outside to start projects earlier so that they get done. And I would assume that that would get us a year or two earlier on cost going up, because I really don't see construction getting cheaper. And when we look at what we hard bid the multi-campus for versus what we built Windsor for, it's a really close amount for a lot less building, and that was a 5-year-ish difference. So I would really, on a money side, timing side, like to see how we might be able to have more projects going earlier, because typically we have the money if we look back historically at our SPLOST collections. Also, from a district standpoint, the timing of Windsor Elementary being a new build, being pushed off, and us building something for staff before students bothers me at my core, because we're putting 208 earlier, and I know we need to do that to get rid of what I didn't want to pay for anyhow, rent. So there's a rub there, but I'm going to have Windsor is going to have a whole entire cohort of students complete school at Windsor Elementary after SPLOST 5 has been passed, before a new school will set foot on that property. So you'll have students that they're coming in, E5 already passed, they will leave and go to middle school, and that building won't be built. And that really irks me slightly on the timing of that school. And then I don't know if we've gotten back, I know I've brought it up with the building, the architects a little bit for the Georgetown school, but I would really like to look at the parking lot on the right side and see if it isn't cost prohibitive to move some of those spaces so we don't lose both green spaces on that site. I know I've brought that up before, but I will bring it up more because I haven't seen any redrawn plans when I've talked to some staff on sidebars and some architects on sidebars. So thank you.
I'll just say, and I'm looking at Ms. Davidson, we have had ongoing conversations about the internal capacity of our team and what we can manage. My hope and desire would be is that we get you some information on how we're going to proceed with that as soon as possible. So we are very much aware and are aligned to what you've stated.
All right, Ms. Hall.
Dr. Watts, in terms of that, I kind of don't understand, though we're lessening our capital projects team rather than growing it. We're losing Mr. Slade Helmsley. We're losing, I forgot the other gentleman's name, but these are two, outstanding contributors to our capital projects. So why are we?
So those folks, we're not lessening, like there's not a deliberate effort to reduce that department. Mr. Henley, there's a very specific reason why he can no longer be a project manager for us, and it's tied to TRS and something very much outside of our control.
Okay.
I'm not sure who the other person is that you're referring to.
No, and I don't want to call a name and have the wrong name.
Yes.
But it just seems to me like we were losing. But I see you're saying Mr. Helmsley has a personal reason that he's leaving.
But there's no deliberate effort to reduce that team. Now, do we have an issue hiring people because of what we pay? Yes, we do.
Okay.
Do we need to look at the expertise and the capacity, even if we could hire enough people? There's still some work that needs to be done in the infrastructure of the way that works. But here's the bottom line, and this is the part that I think we're going to all have to grapple with. Somebody's got to go last.
Yes.
Right? Something's got to be last. Everything can't be first. I could have the most optimal infrastructure, all the capacity in the world, and something will still have to not be first.
Yeah. Well,
So
supposedly
it's
our
just a matter
facilities-
of what we're willing to say shouldn't be first or should be last. I think we've made our best effort to build out a timeline that honors putting kids first, but at the same time thinking about other situations that we have in the district where our employees are also in very bad working conditions. It may not sound good necessarily in a public report.
The way I see it, it's not, it's like, so you've got all this stuff on if we were able to bring in that other person team to
Something.
run, then we're just taking everything and kind of this gap of blankness, we're just folding over and everything slides a little to the left, to earlier. That's my thought. It's not, I'm not wanting, please don't take it as like, I want the district to
Right,
categorize.
just close some gaps.
Just like, I feel, and I could be completely wrong, this is not my line of work, but if we had more operations people, can you take a year and 6 months of this dead space in the timeline, program schedule, sorry, and just fold that over so that everything
Potentially.
starts earlier?
Potentially.
And yes, some of it is the, we all want our stuff done, but then also there's just the earlier we get, I don't want to run out of money.
Right.
Of course, and I know that we got the right
there's a
people to say, we
financial-
got to pump the brakes on that because we've done it before, but nothing's getting cheaper.
Right. There's a financial implication
yeah.
to make, stretching it out.
Yeah.
As
Would
I was
spending a
saying-
little money save us some money?
Okay, as I was saying, our facilities report, supposedly gave us a roadmap. This building is worse than this one.
Right.
This is the order it needs to go. So, but I do want to say something very positive. I rode out to the new Bloomingdale School, and I had not been out there since, I guess, the groundbreaking. I couldn't believe it.
Yes.
It's really
beautiful.
fabulous. And I think we're really to be commended for the way we're changing the Chatham County landscape with our structures. It's
A lot
really
to be proud of.
magnificent, and I feel so wonderful for the children who are going to get to enjoy that at that remote part of our county. So I do want to say that.
Okay, so, Ms. Campbell?
Along with the, okay, sort of piggybacking off of what Dr. Brigham was talking about, I was not a member of the board yet when we voted for Bull Street. But now that we are going ahead with this, I keep asking about Savannah High because I do worry that, I don't see it on here except for the turf. So am I missing something? Are we going to start working on the admin site there?
We have to find a place for the early college first.
Okay,
We
that's
can't work on it until there are students right now that are occupying that portion of the building. And so we have to find a location for those students, which we understand that, and we are working on that. And there should be a recommendation that comes to you in December around what that is for implementation, because we also just can't do that without community engagement, informing those parents that their site is going to change, working out an agreement with wherever college they land. Like, there are multiple steps, so it hasn't been forgotten, and I definitely want to leverage that space because I think it's good space, and we need to be using it, but we can't do that until we get the kids out that are there.
And I want to commend you. I've done so privately as well. I think the fact that we're being creative with underutilized space is amazing. It's just a new way to look at how we can use a building that we already have to staff, the admin from Bull Street. But I do worry, especially with us agreeing to the Georgia Tech commercial lease. Have we factored that into this arrangement for how long we're going to need that? And are we still planning to be on par with what we've asked, the time frame to be leased to get Bull Street done and have a place for the rest of admin to move in at Savannah High?
Megan, I'll probably have to defer to you on some of these things because
I'm coming. So
I don't know them off the top of my head.
the factors that we use when reviewing the East Plus 5 timeline were safety systems, infrastructure condition, instructional impact and capacity, current scope of the project and complexity and feasibility, past ESPLOS. So if we had previously promised this project in a past ESPLOS but ran out of funding, monetary savings, resource and funding availability, future planning. All of those went into a composite score so that it was as data-driven as possible for the outline. So yes, ma'am, the Georgia Tech lease did come into the reasoning for the timeline.
And I'll say, most folks will not be coming back to 208 Bull Street. So while that is a factor, it's kind of not a factor.
I guess that's why I think it's great, the plan that you have to put a lot of those folks at Savannah High and Port
Right.
Wentworth. So that's kind of where my
I see
thinking
what you're
is
saying. They
like,
go
how,
together.
are we factoring it all in to make sure we're like hitting the same timeline endpoint for all of these staff? I support getting them out of the building, obviously, et cetera. But, you know,
Right.
just
I
how long are
understand.
we going to be asking
Right.
for money?
I
Okay.
understand. I
Thank you.
understand.
Mr. Smith, then I'm coming over here, guys, I promise.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for this presentation thus far. I believe we're kind of going into, it sounds like we're going into a CIC meeting in some regard. But
I feel like we have
but
to.
But I do want to lean in on this. Dr. Hall opened up this conversation about buildings and making sure that facilities and sport complexes and things of those natures are available to our children. I would like to ask or pose this question just for consideration. Are we actually building for today and for tomorrow in mind?
Yes.
And I ask that question because Savannah is constantly and consistently growing. And when we look at what took place at Pulaski, where we built an addition, but now we have to put modules there to house the growth that has taken place. My question or my concern is maybe we are not building with tomorrow in mind. When we build campuses that serve 900 or 1,000 students, I'm wondering when will we get to the place where we're building schools and campuses that serve 15 or 2,000?
That's where we're leaning. So I wasn't here for how the design phase and for Pulaski and how we arrived at that building, but we have an enrollment study that is guiding us. We also heard in East Bloss loud and clear from this board around flexible spacing. We have Groves as a potential model for how we do that so that we can consolidate, move grade levels around, and do different innovative things to accommodate growth. So I feel pretty strongly that our team is taking a serious look at the future. While it can't be predicted, right? We don't know what's going to happen. But I think what we do know in general is that there's going to be growth in Savannah. I mean, that's what the next few years. Where that growth happens, though, is a whole different conversation, because in some parts of our city and county, there's hardly anybody there.
Right.
Or, you know, or it's not projected to increase. So I do feel like we are looking at it more strategically. Will we get it right 100% of the time? Likely not. But that has been a huge topic of conversation and focus.
And if I may, Madam Superintendent, I want to add to that we have a current RFP out for a demographer. So this is an expert that will help guide us and review the data in the enrollment study and the housing applications and the birth rates and the fluid changes, as well as it is not just a operations project, right? It's a district project. So looking at the programming in the spaces and all those pieces. So
Yes.
hopefully that will come back soon and we can utilize those demographer services early fall.
Thank you for remembering our demographer.
We
Awesome,
also
thank you.
have guideline specifications, and when you look into those, it's a requirement that we build those projects for future. All those core space areas are oversized so that it will accommodate more growth than what typical GDOE requirements are.
Flexible spacing, you can move things as needed.
Can I make a comment on that? I hope we follow that policy because it wasn't followed. And rooms were deleted from a building. And if we go back and look at a slide in this deck, the FTE on that building changes every single time that slide is put out. And I know y'all know what I'm talking about, and it's wrong and it happened. And I don't know what happened behind closed doors, but it happened, and now we're having to deal with it. So let's stick to what we're saying that we're doing.
I want to make sure I'm clear. That didn't happen with me.
It did not happen, it did not happen under this.
I feel like
It did
I'm
not.
getting handed that. I
Yes.
don't,
No, you do not own that, Dr.
I have tried to
Watts.
figure out why that number changed,
And I don't know,
I've yet
this,
to
today
really
was the first day that it's been back to this number.
But it has
So
changed many
somebody
times.
put an old slide in this deck.
And I'm not, and I think
was
the
gonna be
first
quiet,
time it
but-
came to our attention, we all said, how did we go from a school that was
Yeah.
from this many kids and now it's this many kids?
And why do we continue to go back and forth on this slide with different FTEs every other time we talk about it? Okay? I don't know why, but it hasn't been this FTE for a couple meetings or a couple months, and now it is back to this FTE, 1175. And it's been 900 on a plenty other ones.
Yeah.
So I wasn't gonna try to make a stink, but we got there.
You made it, and I appreciate it, and I will figure out why that is changing.
Yeah, I certainly,
It won't happen again.
Well, that ain't, again.
Okay, so I'm going to finish on this side. We're going to do a halt, this, yes, I promise, I'm coming. Go ahead, Mr. Cashman. No,
We good?
No, I had one thing 20 minutes ago, now I've got 8. I'm going to fuel this discussion some more, unfortunately. So on the Windsor thing, I remember when that came up, and it was a cost.
One time it was a typo.
One time it was a typo, but then it was formally explained as a cost issue, because the FTE was, here's what our goal is, and then we went out and bid it and priced it, and it was okay. I mean, that was the explanation. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but what happens is we come up with a plan and say, we're going to replace the school and it's going to be an FTE of X, right? And then 4 years later, we get around to putting it out for bid to an architect who then designs it, and then we put that out to bid, and then we get a real price. And then we're like, okay, we need to cut 40,000 square feet to fit the budget. That's how it was explained to me. I'm not saying it is accurate or not, but that was a couple of years ago now, before we even got out into that process. You know, having been here for way too long, it seems like, I mean, on the board, not just today. No, well, I say that because this discussion, it's like deja vu all over again. Like, we have had this discussion, and part of me wishes that we had a time capsule of discussions about every school site. Because when we were talking about East Blos 2 and East Blos 3 and East Blos 4, we had these discussions about fields and athletic space and grass versus artificial turf and stadiums versus not. And there were big discussions about, don't you dare move Savannah Arts, they like it there. We know we can't have fields there, but we like the school, don't move it. We don't want to move Beach. So Beach is a finite property, we can't put a stadium there, but we managed to fit in, practice field and baseball and softball field. Johnson doesn't have space for a stadium. And, you know, you can go school by school. Woodville-Tompkins, there was discussion back in E2, I think, about fields versus additional labs. And instead, we built welding labs in that second building we built in E2 maybe, and then E3. So these historical discussions have happened. So when Reverend Smith asked, are we planning for the future? Like, a lot of this stuff was discussed and choices were made or decisions were made. I just wish there was an institutional time capsule of all the discussion points about the sites. The other thing is, when we were talking about E2, population trends were different than they were in E4. And so the decisions we made at the end of E1 into E2, even towards the end of E2, had to change just because of the demographics. So, but it's interesting to think back. I wish we had a capsule of all the things that we've talked about for each site. And we could see, oh, that was a good idea 12 years ago, and it's a really bad idea now. Pulaski, we're over-enrolled there because we expanded the grade levels there. It wasn't at the same grade levels it was now, but the military came to us and said, hey, we want to send more of our age bands to that school. So that we increase by 3 grades, that's gonna add head count. I just had a comment on the timeframe discussion. This timeframe has been discussed for months, generally since E5 came out, when we started discussing whether E5 should be passed. And I don't have a problem changing things if that's what the board wants to do. But I just want to make the point that it was discussed after review of our facilities condition index, after review of cash flow, after review of approximate budgets, and what we can afford when these projects come up. So we all want to front load some things, but to Dr. Watts's point earlier, we can't put everything first, and we can't build the $90 million schools all in year one, right? So if we want to have discussions about changing the timeline, that's fine, but just know there's repercussions upon repercussions upon repercussions. And it's not just, I got a comment from a constituent, or it occurred to me now, let's do this. Because there's so many different things we need to think about. I just wanted to make that point. We can start projects a lot earlier. In E4, we voted, I think in year 2, to allow the board to float bonds. And if we want to do that and generate additional revenue and pay the interest on it, we could certainly do that. But tied to that is the project management discussion. And one, we have a team with finite capacity. We've had hiring and retention issues because it's a really competitive market. But the other issue is we outsourced program management for a while, and then weren't entirely happy with the results because we didn't feel like the owner's wishes were entirely being honored all the time. So we pulled it in-house so we could have more ownership and control. So if we outsource program management again, or outsource part of it and say, okay, everything on page 1, 3, and 5 you're responsible for, and let's move everything 6 months earlier, we're not going to have the ownership oversight that we want. And in my view is, if we do program management again, we should learn from our past 2 lessons or 3 lessons. It needs to be a hybrid where there's still some ownership, oversight, and control, which means we'll have to reconfigure the entire program schedule so that our current people can manage each project at a higher level while farming some of it off to outsource. So again, I have no problem doing that. We got to pay for it. And that's going to come out of eSplost or out of general fund. I think it was $6 million for E4, which I think what we paid, or E3. Yeah, so we just need to be cognizant of, I'm reluctant to outsource something without retaining owner oversight and control, which was a big issue a few years ago.
Okay. All right. Dr. Howell, and then this whole side.
This won't be long at all. Mr. Bremer mentioned earlier about the definitions, and he's athletic complex versus practicing facilities. Woodville Tungus has none of the above.
Yeah, that's true.
None of the above. And what upsets me is that my question can't be answered. I emailed it, and I asked it a few minutes ago about, excuse me, I'm not big mad, so don't think I'm about to I just hadn't gotten an answer. Mr. Brinkman mentioned about closing the gaps, and Ms. Hall talked about operations, more employees in operations. Mr. Cashmar just mentioned project management. So something needs to be done. I'm not pushing a timeline. That's not the point. I just need to know what's going on. What are the plans? At least we as a Wolverine Nation community, would like to know, what are the plans? Will there be, I'm quite sure it won't be a complex because we're landlocked. But what's going on as far as the planning of athletic practice fields? That's what I'd like to know.
So I'm sorry if we didn't get a response. I thought we responded. We don't have a plan because it's not an immediate project for us. And so we're focused on those first projects. We have not sat down with the principal. We've not done any community engagement. We've done nothing because it's not one that is on the first few lists. So there would be really nothing for me to send you at this point in time other than, and I will ask the team before we leave here today, where is Woodville Tompkins on the timeline? When will we start the design work so that we can provide Dr. Howard Hall a specific frame of time in which we will be starting the planning? But right now, there would be nothing for me to send you because we haven't done any. I mean, we know it's out there, but we haven't even started it.
All right. Ms. Grabowski?
Thank you. So two comments, or comment and a question. And I always appreciate hearing the historic perspective of Mr. Katchmar and those who have been doing this a while. And we've talked about, I think particularly as we go into E5, that maybe this is a good opportunity for us to formalize our decision-making process and the documentation that goes along with that, whether that's through e-builder or some other mechanism. But just like we talked about, when the board receives information about RFPs, we should receive, a 2-page project overview specific for each project. This is the square footage, this is the FTE, like that that would be really helpful. And I would love it's my understanding again from Mr. Katchmar that once upon a time that the projects before they went out to bid were at least provided to CIC so that the board could see the actual designed project. And that has not happened as long as I've been on the board. And even for, Jacob G. Smith, I didn't see, the plans until we were at the meeting. And as a board member, it's really helpful to have that information. And I think that that would be a way to make sure that the board is more engaged and aware. And if, within that project sheet, changes absolutely do happen, to be able to set some thresholds of if it's, a more than 10% reduction in the size of the building, that there's a formal review process. So I just think if we put in some of those processes that go along with it, it can also be helpful for our team because they have a higher level of certainty and expectation of what their requirements are. That's something I think could be helpful for all of us, and having a common understanding also of what information we would be receiving. So does that make sense?
It does, but I will want to follow up with
Yeah.
you and maybe a couple of people from the capital projects team. Conceptually, I understand, but I need to get more information to operationalize
Okay.
it.
All right, happy to have a sidebar. And then a very specific question for West Chatham. At one time, I think there was conversation about the athletic complex potentially being a partnership or a joint venture kind of thing with Chatham County. Is that still in discussion or under consideration?
We have another meeting planned with the city in maybe the next 30 days or so. And when we were in that last meeting, we did talk about partnerships.
Yeah.
But I have not seen enough around their SPLOST planning. I have no insight into what they are planning for the future, so I think there has to be some more discussion about that before we could commit either way.
Okay, looks like Ms. Campbell might have an idea.
Yeah, so, and you said West Chatham and the county. So I know that Mayor Williams is
Okay.
eager to, from just Pooler, City of
Right.
Pooler speaking, to speak with us extensively on what that would look like, where, we have rec center down the road, but this would be a site that's a little closer than the Y, et cetera, to actually use it for that reason when it's not being used by the school
Right.
there or anywhere nearby that would need it as
Yeah.
a school site.
Well, I think this is a good, earlier we had the conversation about the shared use of the pools with the city, and that led into conversation, and I agree 100% with Mr. Katchmar. I would love for us to look at that with all of our athletic facilities. I know I've had a lot of people contact me about the use of the track at Jenkins after hours for, there are track club, anyways, so again, being able to look at that on the front end as you're going into the process versus trying to retrofit it afterwards could be really helpful. And I was also interested if we are, if that athletic complex is also going to be on the same site or if we're looking at a different site, because I know we had talked about some site constraints on the West Chatham High School and K-8 property.
Yes. So it is intended for it to be on the same site, but we are working through the site review because of the wetlands. But
Yeah.
we do intend for it to be on the same site. We are working with to see how we can be great partners with the city. For example, in Bloomingdale, they would love to have access to the gym, the Dr. Bland gym.
Bland, yes.
And so it was, designed and so that it could be utilized separately. So
Yeah.
it's kind of got its own little entry point. Security doesn't allow for them to go into the rest of the school. And so we are keeping that in mind for our designs. We do have an opportunity to expand that review through our tracks and other pieces, but that is something we are actively working.
Okay, great, thank you.
Y'all have worn me out. Y'all have pulled everything out of this report. I don't have a question. I can't. I just can't. So I'm sure I'll email at another time, but I just don't have it.
Okay. Ms. Hall?
I give up my time.
I didn't anticipate all this today.
You never know, we're just gonna keep you on your toes.
All right.
Can we cancel the CIC meeting?
All right. Mr. Jackson?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I think my first item, not sure what the number is, textbook purchase. Okay, interfund transfer.
Yes.
All right. I don't see the screen. Yeah, thank you. That's what I was looking for. Budget amendment, textbook purchase, interfund transfer. On February 7th, 2024, the board approved the award of RFP 23-41 for the K-12 Reading English Language Arts textbook adoption annual contract to Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Publishing Company. The adoption includes the comprehensive purchase of intro reading grades K through 5, intro literature grades 6 through 8, WAGO grades 6 through 8, writable grades 3 through 12, with a total estimated cost of $20,387,665 over a 6-year period. The board also authorized the use of $6,850,730 from fund balance to cover year 1 costs and assign $13,536,935 of fund balance to cover the estimated cost for years 2 through 6 at an annual amount of $2.7 million. Following contract negotiation, the remaining payments are due on the following schedule for a total of $9.8 million. Staff now recommends a budget transfer and amendment to move these remaining payments to a multi-year special revenue fund. This will support district schools in alignment with strategic priorities and ensure continued funding stability across the adoption period. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the use of fund balance and budget amendment to cover the remaining cost of textbook purchases in the amount of $9,808,658 for FY26 through FY30.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Catchmore.
One question, is this in addition to current purchases or in lieu of other textbook purchases?
This is related to the actual contract that was awarded last year, so this is a replacement of, if that's your question.
Okay.
These are not new resources.
They're not new resources. Okay. That's what I was asking. Thanks.
Okay, there being no more discussion, all in favor? All opposed? One.
Item 8.04, this item is just a budget transfer within the Transportation Department to cover overtime for working employees. To cover the overtime account lines, the following budget transfer is requested, and it's basically transferring funds from vacant positions that were vacant throughout the year to overtime accounts that were used. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the budget transfer in the amount of $3,398,920 as shown above.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Kachmar.
Sorry. We're spending $3.4 million on overtime. If we raised everybody's pay $5 an hour, how many more jobs could we fill and not pay overtime? Just asking that question.
Let me just say this, the overtime occurs, you're right, because of the vacant positions. Part of it is because of the way the drivers work. Some drivers are on a 8-hour schedule, 5-hour schedule instead of 8. So when they work above the 5 hours, on our system, it's considered overtime. It's not time and a half, but it's calculated as overtime on our system. So part of it is a lack of drivers, part of it is the hours that they actually work. To cover that. But if we could hire more drivers, it would fix the problem.
Didn't we try to move more people to 8-hour?
Every year we probably have moved for the last 3 years. We've been moving drivers, and we just need to move some more.
See, now we opened up a little can of worms here.
There you did.
Another can of worms.
I think an ongoing query from the drivers is why we call hours over their allotted schedule overtime when it's not really overtime, it's just above schedule.
Schedule, correct.
And people get confused. You know, overtime traditionally means time and a half, hours over 40 in a work week. And the related issue is pay stubs showing different hours, but not attributing them per week necessarily. So I guess my fundamental question is, and I'm going to vote for this just to be clear, because we got to do it, but let's fix this. It sounds like what we're doing is setting a specific number of positions at a certain number of hours per position, and that's what we're budgeting for. If we had more positions and we just pay them for time actually worked, it would better reflect the reality of what's happening. Instead of having to pay overtime, you just pay people for the time they're actually working, and we wouldn't have this need to amend the budget, number one, and lack of clarity on whether we're paying for overtime or just we didn't plan schedules correctly. I'll stop now. Thanks.
That is something we're in the process of correcting. Our new transportation director is working on that.
Ms. Grabowski and then Ms.
So for clarification, the overtime is, you said it's not time and a half, so is it the same
Same rate of pay. Most of this is the same rate of pay now. Some of it could be truly overtime due to field trips and so on, but a
Right.
majority of it is just at the same rate of pay.
Okay, so the higher rate would kick in at over 40
Once you get
hours?
priced, yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I just wanted to make sure there wasn't some like work. You were a 5-hour, but anyways, okay, thank you.
Can I say something? Remote Human Resources, just a clarification. I think because of how it's listed in the budget, it's listed as overtime, but way it's communicating, the way it's in the system is over base. So think about over base being, between 15 and 40, and then when you get to 40, it's overtime, but the account line shows overtime, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Can the account line be changed?
For the purpose of what the public sees, we can work on that, yes.
Yeah, I think that'd be really helpful to make that clarification.
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
I just wondered if there's some disadvantage to us for all of our drivers to be on 8 hours. Is there some reason that we can't just say your day is an 8-hour day? Why do we have that 5-hour?
Some don't want an 8-hour
Yeah.
day. Some don't want to work 8 hours because they have other obligations.
see.
And then it is a matter of who supervises them during that in-between time. Now, I have pitched and will continue to pitch a concept in which they can go work in schools.
Yeah.
They park the bus, they go inside, they help in the cafeteria, they help do other things to provide for that 8 hours, but I haven't followed back up with the team on that. I know it's been a discussion, though.
Good, please pursue that, because that seems that would solve a lot of this. And it's certainly done elsewhere.
Okay.
Ms. Grabowski just said it would give our kids more field trip opportunities. Yeah, send them on field trips.
All right, there being more, any more discussion? Okay, there being none, all in favor? Thank you.
Okay, the next item, 8.05, is SPLOST 4, Georgetown K-8 Construction Authorization, J.E. Dunk Construction. Staff have reviewed the proposal and recommend board approval for the authorization to expend up to $8,413,223 for construction startup costs to allow for purchasing of long lead delivery materials, equipment, and to start demolition at early bird package work, and the superintendent supports this recommendation. Thus be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the expenditure of up to $8,413,223 for construction startup costs to allow for purchasing of long lead delivery materials, equipment, and startup demolition at early bird package work for the Georgetown K-8 project.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Wonderful. There being no more discussion, all in favor? Wonderful, thank you.
Item 8.06 is just an extension on contract related to RFP 20-28, education materials and supplies. Thus be it resolved upon the recommendation of superintendent that the board approve the extension request for RFP 20-28, educational materials and supplies catalog discounts for instructional, art, media center, medical, music, theater, PE, athletics, and science. Annual contract to the firms listed above at an estimated annual cost of $2.1 million.
Moved. Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Wonderful.
Item 8.07 is in response to RFP 25-21, substitute employee services annual contract. The purchasing department received 7 proposals in response to RFP 25-31, substitute employee services annual contract. Staff recommends an award to ESS Southeast LLC for an estimated initial one-year period cost of $7.1 million. ESS Southeast LLC received the highest score in the evaluation process. The award is for a one-year period with the option to renew the contract for 2 additional one-year periods. The funding source is general fund. Thus be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the award of RFP 25-31 substitute employee services annual contract to ESS Southeast LLC for an initial one-year estimated annual cost of $7,100,000.
It's been moved, seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
8.08, bid 25-34, milk products for school nutrition programs, annual contract. The purchasing department only received one bid in response. Staff recommends the contract award to DFA Dairy Brands Fluid, LLC, doing business as Pet Dairy at an estimated annual cost of $2 million. Funding source is within the School Food Service Fund. Thus be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the award of bid 25-34 milk products for school nutrition program annual contract to DFA Dairy Brands Fluid, LLC, doing business as Pet Dairy for an estimated annual cost of $2 million.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Wonderful. All in favor? Okay.
Item 8.09, Power School System SIS Maintenance and Support Agreements, Power School Group. This is a sole source renewal. The Office of Technology and Business Systems and the Office of Instructional Excellence and Talent and Human Resources desire to renew the annual license and subscription agreements with Power School Group, LLC, as a sole source for the existing student information systems and administrative software programs. The maintenance and support of the student information system is an ongoing service, which is required to maintain district operation functions. The staff recommends renewal of contracts Power School Group for the ongoing maintenance, support, licenses, and subscriptions for an additional 1 year with 2 additional 1-year periods. The total cost for FY25-26 for those combined services is $662,207.31. Thus be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the sole source contract renewal to Power School Group, LLC, for the 1-year period at a total cost of $662,207.31.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Wonderful. All in favor?
Item 8.10, Georgia School Boards Association Risk Management Fund Annual Contract. The purpose of the Georgia School Board Association Risk Management Fund is to administer property and liability coverage, lower administrative costs, and reduce claims through active programs for loss prevention and loss control. The GSBA RMS proposal is all-conclusive of insuring property for the Savannah-Chatham County Public School District for a period of 1 year, July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, for an estimated cost of $4,911,707. The cost of the coverage is increasing by 11.15% from the current year. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the contract M26022 with Georgia School Boards Association Risk Management Services for the period of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026 at an estimated annual cost of $4,911,707.
Been moved. Have a second? Okay, great. Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Hall.
Mr. Jackson, GSBA is asking us for $4 million to provide risk management of what?
It's the insurance coverage.
Okay, insurance for?
Yes, ma'am. It's the insurance coverage. That's really all it is.
Okay, insurance for us as board members?
The district.
The district
and properties.
itself?
Yes, ma'am.
I see.
Yeah, they just manage basically the insurance
So if we were
policy for us.
sued if we were sued, then they would take care of.
These are on properties, I believe.
It's properties.
This is properties. Property.
Oh, okay, if someone were to fall or something, okay, thank you,
Buildings.
thank you.
Any other questions? All right. All in favor? Yo, Rich. Thank you.
Okay, item 8.11, tentative adoption of the fiscal year 2026 budget for all funds. In accordance with law and policy, staff presents the tentative fiscal year 2026 budget for all funds. The budget consists of 5 components: the general fund, general obligation debt budget, special revenue funds budget, capital projects funds budget, and other funds budget. The tentative budget under consideration reflects no millage increase or decrease for a total combined millage of 17.481 mills, 17.481 mills for maintenance and operation, and 0 mil for general obligation bond debt. General fund budget, the tentative fiscal year 2026 general fund budgeted expenditures and other uses total $659,511,639. This budget will receive $440,176,930 in revenues from local revenue, $216,090,965 in state revenues, and $1.3 million in federal revenues, and a use of fund balance of $1,943,744. The estimated ad valorem tax millage rate for calendar year 2025 is 17.481. The ad valorem tax revenues were calculated using an estimated adjusted net M&O digest of $22,411,234,631 for calendar year 2025. The general obligation debt budget, the tentative fiscal year 2026 general obligation debt budgeted expenditures total $270,000. The estimated ad valorem tax millage rate for calendar year 2025 is 0. The ad valorem tax revenues were calculated using an estimated net bond digest of $24,455,561,151 for calendar year 2025. Special revenue funds budget, the tentative fiscal year 2026 special revenue funds budgeted expenditures and other uses are $118,454,597 as listed in the table below for special revenue funds. Other funds budget, the tentative fiscal year 2026 other funds budgeted expenditures total $3,952,635. The following budgets are included in the table below. Capital projects funds, the tentative fiscal year 2026 capital projects funds budgeted expenditures total $162,123,459. This budget is based upon estimated costs to be incurred between July 1st, 2025 and June 30th, 2026 for approved projects. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education tentatively adopt the following budgets. Fiscal year 2026 general fund budget for $659,511,639. Fiscal year 2026 general obligation debt budget $0. Fiscal year 2026 special revenue funds budget for $118,454,597. Fiscal year 2026 other funds budget for $3,952,635. Fiscal year 2026 capital projects funds budget for $162,123,459.
May I have a motion? May I have a second? It's been properly moved and seconded. May I have a vote? All in favor, please say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, discussion. I don't think there's any more discussion, but if there is discussion?
Yeah. So this was handed to us.
Dr. David Brayman, please.
Got this today. It's estimated. We still don't know what our digest is going to be. And while I agree with everything that is in the budget, I still believe, like I stated this morning, that we can do a small rollback and meet all of these needs. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, I did forget to mention, we received an email with a digest at 11:32 this morning. Basically verified the numbers that were given to us verbally by the assessor's office. And based upon our calculations, we're only off in collected revenues by less than $100,000.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion? Hearing none, may we please vote? All in favor, please say aye. All opposers, you have the same.
Item 8.12.
Yes.
Item 8.12.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. What did we just, okay, we're voting on the
We
budget.
just voted
right?
on the budget.
Okay, we've not voted on millage. Okay, all right.
Okay.
8.12, calendar year 2025, fiscal year 2026, tentative recommended tax millage levy under Georgia law. The Board of Public Education for the City of Savannah and the County of Chatham is a recommending authority that exercises the power to cause the levying authority, the Chatham County Commission, to levy property taxes to carry out the purpose of the Board of Education. In accordance with the law and policy, it is necessary for the board to adopt the recommended calendar year millage rates for both maintenance and operations and general obligation bond indebtedness and their corresponding levies on taxable property. The calendar year 2025 millage rates used in the projection of revenues for the fiscal year 2026 budget are 17.481 mills for maintenance and operations and 0 mil for general obligation debt, for a combined millage rate of 17.481 mills. See the tentative adoption of FY26 budget for all funds item. The proposed millage rate for maintenance and operations is not in compliance with the rollback rate calculated by the tax assessor as required by OCGA 48-5-32.1, and as such will be required to advertise a tax increase of 3.89% above the rollback millage rate. Tentative adoption of these millage rates is required at this time to meet statutory timelines for millage adoption. Accordingly, staff proposes these millage rates be tentatively adopted. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Public Education for the City of Savannah and the County of Chatham, as provided by law, does hereby tentatively recommend to the Chatham County Commissioners and ex officio judges thereof that there be levied upon the dollar of all taxable property in Chatham County, Georgia, a general fund tax of 17.481 mills and general obligation bond debt tax of 0 mil, and an aggregate millage rate of 17.481 mills for the year of 2025 for the support and maintenance of public education, and the staff be directed to advertise such tentative recommended millage rates as required by law.
Okay, do I have a motion to moved and seconded discussion? And I'm sure there is some. Discussion? Ms. Grabowski.
So for clarification and for the benefit of the public, this is our tentative millage.
Yes, ma'am.
And the final millage rate will be set at our final vote scheduled on the 25th,
5th of June, correct.
25th of June.
Right.
At which time, I realize you received the information this morning.
Yes.
And your estimates are close, but it will give you the time to be able to further evaluate the information from the tax
Yes, we
assessor
will vet the information and make any additional adjustments that staff or the superintendent need to during that time period.
Okay. And so with the tentative millage rate, we can go down, but we would not be able to go up after adopting this tentative rate.
That's correct.
Okay.
Without starting the process.
Without
over.
starting the process over. So just want to make sure that's,
If you remember last year, I believe we did something very similar. Tentatively, for advertisement purposes,
Right.
we kept it the same, but by the time we got to the final budget adoption, we did
We
a
did
bit
lower
of a
it.
rollback. But we have to have something to advertise.
right, okay. So, thank you, I just wanted to
Yes.
make that clarification. And I understand Dr. Bringman's point from this morning, looking at historic projections versus collections, so I think that's good information for us to be able to have as we go into continued deliberations. Realizing this is a different vote from the budget, but obviously the two are very closely connected. A little bit surprised at the vote that we just had, having seen the number of noes that were not in support of the budget as presented. In all of our many finance meetings and budget discussions, I have not heard from my colleagues about proposals for what they would like to see removed from the budget. So I don't know if we can intermix those conversations, but since the two are linked, would like to better understand what reductions my colleagues are looking for from the budget. Maybe I've misunderstood.
And that's why I hate that these are two separate, because in the first, I fully support everything in the budget. I have supported the process along the way, but I have kind of said I'd still like to see some form of rollback the entire process as well. In the language of the tentative adoption of the fiscal year budget, you have to say that the estimated millage is going to be a certain amount, which I don't like, and I want the rollback that I want us to have already figured out that we're going to do a 0.05 or a 0.1 or a 0.15 chunk back, and have that in the tentative budget. So don't take my no as something I don't like what's in the budget. The process has gone great, but because you have to have, or at least the way we write this, the estimated tax is in the budget, so it's muddied for me.
Right.
So
So you're not opposed to the dollar amount of the budget, you're opposed to the millage rate language that's embedded in the budget resolution.
Correct, because I believe we over-collect,
Okay,
and I'm also not on the side of having to have as much general fund hanging around.
okay.
We have differing views across the horseshoe. So I wanted to be here already with a rollback number. Yes,
Yeah.
and that is why I've wanted for a really long time also to separate these processes. And I don't know if state law says that we have to have the estimated ad valorem tax millage rate for calendar year 2025 is 17.481 in this. Yes,
Mr.
and that
Jackson's
drives
saying
me
yes,
nuts
yeah.
because I think we shouldn't have to have that even in the language. I think we should say, this is our tentative budget. We set our plan, which we have done, I think, a very transparent job of saying, this is what we want to accomplish. They lead to our goals. And in years coming, it's going to be even more directed towards a return on investment. And I want to pass that months before we pass taxes.
Yeah,
I know we're getting there because we adjust our budget all the time. I want to build, I hate that they're connected. I hate that they're right behind each other because they shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, oh, we're bringing in money, so let's spend it. Or let's build right to that point that we think we're at, versus this is what we want to accomplish, this is how much it's going to cost, and then we have to decide how to bring that money in.
Levered for them.
Yes.
Whether it's the fund balance.
Yes. Yes.
And those are the options.
Yes.
If we vote on the budget and the millage and what we get in our tax digest doesn't come in at what we think it's going to come in at.
Then we have to make up the
then we either
difference.
have to- We have to cut something from the budget, but if you vote on the budget, it would be hard to then go back and,
We cut things from the budget all the time,
okay,
don't we?
well, we could
We can.
cut the budget.
Yeah. But we haven't had to do that, and we've always gone to the ninth hour. And this is not just you. This is now going on 7 years. We've always gone to the ninth hour, literally sometimes in the middle of the discussion, and somebody's over there changing what the reading's going to be like on the millage. Last year, it was, I believe, the day before on the telephone to try to figure out what that number was going to be. And that might still happen this year. I just would like, and this isn't, this is the process, and this year it definitely got fumbled because of state law changes. I think we would have had these conversations.
We would have.
Yes. We would have had more of these conversations this morning, probably. But I have no problem with the budget. It's that I still think we can absorb some amount, not a full, that's not me, but some amount of a rollback, just like we did last year. Because last year, we did it. We didn't cut anything.
Right. I did it in the same way, though. We advertised it.
Yes.
As it is, and the decision to do the rollback happened after that.
Correct.
And then it was presented to you at the final budget.
Yeah.
So it is a similar process, but I totally understand what
Yeah.
you're saying, because I grapple with it myself. Like, they're tied together, but you can do one before the other.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
No, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, yes, Dr. Howard.
I'm just sitting here wondering what impact would the federal budget have? We don't know what's
don't
going to
know.
happen, with the federal budget.
And so if we cut them, if we roll back the millage rate, and then something happens at a national, federal, and we have to go into fund balance, then we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and we may need that fund balance at some other time. So we don't have that slide up, but it's like you're trying to predict a future that you don't know. And so I'm a little leery about going too deep into fund balance. I'm leery about that because I don't know what the future is going to be. And we may have to go in fund balance anyway.
So, am I on? Yeah, okay. So I need to clear something up. The reason, and apparently my vote was listed as yes, and I was actually voting no. And for the same reason that David is talking about. I didn't like the fact, I'm fine with the budget. I was not fine with the millage rate. And for some reason, I don't remember it being listed that way last year.
It was.
Okay, all right.
I made the change in the millage rate a few days before the
Yeah.
final adoption. It was the same process.
And the board still has the opportunity where we can reduce the millage rate by the 25th.
But I have to advertise something.
Yes.
And so this is the only, I
understand.
This is to me the most responsible way to advertise something
Yeah.
that I know I have the ability to go back and change later versus advertise it at a lower rate, knowing at that point I cannot go higher.
Right.
So we would be locked in at the lower rate if I advertise it now at a rollback.
Yeah.
And you'll be required to advertise that on any amount that is higher than the full rollback. See, so last year, we didn't really roll back, we reduced the millage rate. So you have to take that into account as well. So right now, at this meeting, if we were to come with a recommendation for a full rollback, that would achieve the elimination of those meetings. So, but again, the tentative component is also a requirement by statutory law that we have a tentative budget, and this is part of a transparency component as the way the law is written, to make sure the public can see what the board intends to do on recommendation by the superintendent. That's the beauty of the tentative. But again, as Ms. Grabowski pointed out, very important point, the board still may lower the millage rate by June 25th. So the vote for the tentative adoption right now does not lock that number in. The only thing the board cannot do is raise it after the tentative.
Ms. Hall.
Mr. Jackson, do we have any further reports coming from the federal government in terms of federal grants and that kind of thing to us? Is there anything left for us to be waiting for to hear from them?
We have not heard anything yet. Most of they're still waiting on award letters and notifications. They haven't received them yet. They normally would have pretty much by this point. So we're all on standby.
And of course, most of the money that we get from them are in terms of those grants and things. That's where the
Yes.
bulk of that comes. So
They're
I
truly
think
for the grants,
at this
correct.
point, it would not be in our best interest to decide to reduce or roll back our millage rate, given the uncertainty, that's a nice word, the uncertainty of our situation at the national level.
Yes, ma'am. I think that's the message we've tried to convey the last couple of Finance Committee meetings.
Okay, Dr. Hoskins Brown, then Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. I think this is an important discussion. However, I think that this is really something that should be addressed when we are developing our legislative priorities, because this is about the language of the law. This is not really about our budget process, because the thing that we are concerned about, we don't have control over. So I would ask that our legislative representative kind of put this in the notebook of things that she writes down all year, and that we redress that in a way. Some of you talk to members of our delegation more frequently than others. This is something to bring up over a cup of coffee that they may be able to influence. Just speaking from someone who's working in the federal sector, the notifications of things that are not being funded is not complete. People are finding out, there are agencies that are finding out and organizations that receive federal funding that are still finding out that grants are being defunded. I'm hearing that from folks on the academic side, and we're seeing that on our federal commission. So just because things are quiet on the side of notifications for defunding doesn't mean anything except that the process of making those decisions is inefficient, because now that is being communicated by a smaller federal workforce. So that doesn't mean it's gone away. It just means you're finding out slower. I don't personally think that this is the right time to be talking about a rollback without having, one, without having the information that you had this morning, two, being only 1 week in the hurricane season, three, not having a passed federal spending bill. To me, those are unknowns that make me look at our process differently. So we have the opportunity to offer our vote when we get to the final part. This is the getting ready to get ready part. And by the time we get to the final part, we should have some more information. But those are my reflections on where we are right now.
Ms. Campbell.
So, okay, let me start by saying I have supported and been very clear, I think, since the first retreat, not wanting attendance clerks or really supporting having retirement for staff that otherwise would not, or benefits that they would otherwise not get if we didn't fund them. I think some things are important, some things I would be willing to cut, but when asked, what would you cut? And the list is salary for teachers, or, I mean, I am not an accountant, nor do I have access to every line item on our budget. So it is troubling that when given a list of things, okay, well, what do you want to cut, that I have to be a villain and, in my opinion, not fair to teachers or students with regard to what we want to do, because all the things on the budget were things that I openly support. But we have outpaced inflation again. We're at, what is it, 2.3 tell me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure it's 2.3 over the last 12 months. We're at 3.89. Even at baseline, that's a problem. It doesn't mean I don't like the budget, that the things that we have offered up on the list that are new, but as of just yesterday or the day before, we were still getting charts of, cuts that were being made. So we heard about the 10 million, and we heard those were not jobs, but they were openings, vacancies, and that was great. And then we got some more back. And so I was just hopeful, I guess, that we were going to find some places to cut because, again, I'm not an accountant. I don't have line items of an entire public school system's budget, but I can tell you that I will vote for the millage rate as it is right now because we need to get there where we can hear from the community, and it means that we cannot move it up. But as it stands right now, I am not okay without having some semblance of a decrease in what we're asking taxpayers to pay. Because we just got East Bloss passed for over $700 million. And I know that's earmarked, and I know that's for specific things, but money doesn't come easy to the community, just like it doesn't come easy to us. So that's where I stand, just to clarify.
So I want to make sure I understand. If you feel adamant that we must have a rollback, but a reduction in the millage rate, and you're saying you like the budget.
I like what we have decided to do at the retreats, et cetera.
So is that guidance to me, for me to use fund balance to get there? Is that because that's the lever I have to pull?
As long as we're still adhering to GAP, recommendations, I would say yes. If it's going to cut into that, no. But have we really exhausted every resource for what cuts can be made?
For this year, I wholeheartedly believe that I have done all that I can do without taking risks. Because if you start pulling the thread, you don't know what all is going to come falling apart. So I'm doing it conservatively. Last year, I pulled a little thread. This year, I pulled a little bit more thread. I mean, if you tell me I need to go back and find some things to cut, I can do it. But there will be implications for that, and I can't always guarantee that that is going to be good.
Yes. Ms. Grabowski, then Dr. Greenwood.
So one of the comments that I did not make earlier, and I should have because I think it's important to this discussion, I think the staff needs to be commended for the cuts that they have brought to us. They have presented almost $28 million in budget reductions. $28 million. That's money that has lived in our budget for years. It's just been there. And I think that Dr. Watts and her team have done the hard work in finding those reductions to be able to really hone in and be more precise in what it is that we truly need. At the same time, we know we have challenges that we have been trying to chronic challenges we've been trying to face in this community for years. So we can't put in the same investment and expect higher yields at the same time. We've got tremendous momentum with our focus on literacy and our letters training and all of these things that cost additional money. We have new things that we are piloting to address our chronically underperforming schools. And we're doing so in a very thoughtful and carried measure to understand if it works. We're not, changing everything at one time. And to me, that is the responsible way to do it for our students and also fiscally so that we know that we can have that return on investment. We're putting all this time and energy into understanding the return on investment, and that has factored into this budget. So would it be great to find additional places to cut? Absolutely. But I feel like the staff has done a tremendous job already in finding those places to cut. This morning, I asked the question about the federal dollars that we do receive. For clarification, it's $118 million that we, unfortunately, don't have as high of a level of certainty as we have had in the past about if there will be changes, significant changes in that $118 million that we rely on, particularly to support some of our most vulnerable students. So I think that the budget that's been presented to us is fiscally responsible and also moves us forward in the direction that we need to go for our students and for our community.
Ms. Campbell.
I just want to follow up with this. So the fact that this money has lived in our budget for years, I think is kind of the point. Obviously, spending more has not bettered our outcomes. Do I think that spending significantly less is going to better outcomes? No, I don't think that's rational or logical. But the fact that our enrollment numbers have gone down over 10 years, but we keep asking for more and more above the rate of inflation is troubling. So while I support all of the priorities in the budget, maybe that's a better way to say it, that have been listed, I don't support the amounts. At some point, we can't say yes to everything. So I would love to, like I said, I'm going to vote for this today so we can advertise it and it can't go above that and we can hear from the community. I think that's wonderful. But I do want to continue this discussion and just see if there's something else that we can do that potentially, cuts some of this money that's like lived in our budget for years that we didn't need.
Anyone else? Yeah. Yes, Dr. Greenwood.
Thank you, Ms. Grabowski. Fully support and understand everything you're saying. Fully. And again, I think the finance year in review has been great. I look forward to next year. That sounds so weird. Like, yeah, let's talk about I mean, I do. Like the return on investment stuff, all that stuff, everything has been transparent. Everything we've asked to prioritize is getting done. We're taking care of our staff. We're moving forward academically. I'm not wanting to cut anything. And I need to go back and watch the meeting from last year when we decided to have the discussion on the tiny 0.15 reduction. And we had a lot of the same feelings, like, ooh, we're not cutting anything. We're just going to lower that back and we'll see what happens. And nothing happened. Because I still, and I'll wait, and maybe finance from this morning will give me data that proves me wrong, and then I will eat that and say, okay, I was wrong. But I believe, keep collecting more than we project, and the tiny reduction washes out. So I don't want to change anything. And that's just me, one person feeling like a tiny reduction, not a full rollback, a tiny reduction will just wash out. So it's nothing against anybody. Thank you. That's where I don't want you to leave today. And I think we almost had this same conversation last year during the budget. It's like, this is nothing against you and the budget that the district has brought forward. This is just 9 people that feel differently about how they budget. Now, who knows what happens with federal? Who knows? And if it's that big of a number and it all goes away overnight, no fund balance is going to be able to fix that. And we're going to have lots of interesting meetings, and I couldn't even imagine what that would, So let's not speak that into existence. But I just, again, feel like a tiny reduction will wash out because the digest of things that are taxable continues to rise. And that's just me.
Dr. Howard Hall. And guys, remember, we have a meeting at 5:30.
Oh, this won't be long at all.
Yes.
When you look at the general budget, we know that 85% of that budget is in salaries, and the 15% material things, software, and the list can go on and on. So when we talk about cutting, are we focusing on people or things? We've received some emails regarding some K-8 schools that need more things. They feel that they need more support in receiving more materials, more software, more licenses. So when you talk about cutting, are we focusing on, I guess I'm a little confused with your thoughts, Ms. Campbell, when you say cuts. Are you looking at people or things, or you're not really sure?
So I'm thinking about this money that's lived in the budget that we've had year over year, that, you know, where do we cut? I don't know. If, you know, 85%, which I know is true, I've done the math myself, are people, we're still short on some jobs. Like, are all of these people, you know, like,
So that's the vacancy factor lever.
right?
And we've talked about that lever extensively on cabinet, and that is a lever we can pull on. You know, we can adjust that number. Of course, the risk is if we hire everybody, if our HR department hires everybody, then we get to, you know, then that money gives us less flexibility. So, I mean, that would probably be, once we go back to the table after today's discussion, if I recover from it, it's probably gonna be one of the first places
Yes.
that because we've talked about that extensively all week. There's a risk associated with that. So, you know, it's just how risky are we willing to go? But I hear everyone, and I do think there's some wiggle room, but for the purposes of today, to have something to advertise, we have to have a budget and we have to have a millage rate, but it's not final. There's still more work to happen. So I guess I was a little shocked at when we put it up to vote, I don't know, I didn't feel like we were together on that, so,
Dr. Hoskins Brown.
I call the question. I call the question.
Second.
All in favor of calling the question? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm done. Those opposed? Calling the question. Okay, wonderful. All right, but there, let's vote. No? So, okay, so now we're voting regarding adopting the tentative, and press, please get this, tentative millage rate, and that was a tentative budget. Those in favor of accepting the tentative recommended tax millage levy? Okay, yes, and let's vote again. All in favor of accepting the tentative tax levy? Tentative millage rate, I'm sorry. Yeah, all in favor? That's fine. All opposed? Okay. All right.
Okay, moving on to our resolution approving the purchase and sale agreement between Coastal Empire Montessori Community Organization, doing business as Coastal Empire Montessori Charter School, SIMSIS, and the board. The board and SIMSIS have been in discussion for the purchase of the property formerly used as the Coastal Comprehensive Academy on Cynthia Street. The recombination plat has not been approved by the city of Savannah yet, as it's been presented. However, we do anticipate approval no more than 90 days, but the agreement provides for the closing not more than 10 days after recording of the plat, then approved by both parties. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and the board approve the purchase and sale agreement in form as presented and authorizes the officers of the board to execute the agreement and take any further actions necessary or desirable to effect the transaction, including the execution of the deeds or certificates, amendments to the PSA, extensions thereto, and the final plats as they, in their discretion, deem necessary.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, there being none, all in favor? Oh, and Dr. Hoskins Brown's gone. Okay, all right.
And the very last item, 8.14, this is just a budget transfer. Pool repairs from the Operation Division. Staff requests the following budget transfer, an amendment to provide funding to proceed with repairs and upgrades to the pools that are owned by the district. We're going to transfer $600,000 from the general fund to Fund 308 for those basically one-time expenditures in the amount of $600,000. Thus be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the budget transfer and budget amendment in the amount of $600,000.
It's been moved and seconded and third and fourth and, okay, all right. Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Kropowski.
So 2 points of clarification, that the work will not proceed until we have reached resolution with the city of Savannah, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And this morning, I had suggested that we potentially hold off on the $150,000 for Schuman. So can I amend the motion to reduce this amount to $450,000 or to
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
not go forward with that part of the work?
Because the 600,000 does include Schuman.
Right.
So, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So do I need to?
If the board agrees that we should hold off on Schuman.
Okay, so I would like to amend the motion to revise the budget transfer amount to $450,000.
It's been moved and and seconded. Any discussion on that? Okay, so let's vote on that motion. All in favor? That's fine, okay. All opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay.
Now we have to vote on the resolution.
This day has been so long. Still have another meeting. All in favor of the motion, the transfer of budget amendment in the amount of $450,000? All opposed? All abstaining? Thank you. All right. We have two people that have signed up to speak before us today. Robin Serwi? Robin Serwi, are you here? She's not here. Okay, and Raymond Watson.
Good evening. Today's board meeting actually marks like a year since I've been coming up here speaking. A journey that started out with a simple goal to advocate for better contracts and respect for teachers, but also for stronger educational practices for our students of Savannah-Chatham County. To say that it's not been an easy path, at times it's been very frustrating. Frustrating with the slow pace of change, by moments that felt dismissive, and yes, even by actions that felt targeted. But it kept coming, not for myself, but for other teachers that work hard, and for the students of this county, and the parents who trust us with their child's future. However, today I'm here to say that I'm proud of some stuff that I feel like. The discussions in March about protective planning, the time clock thing today. But I also wanted to highlight the opportunities that I've had to engage in meaningful conversations with board members. District 7, Stephanie Campbell. District 8, Dr. Tanya Howard. I want to say this clearly to everyone, a teacher or community member. Do not let anyone tell you that these two will not listen. It's my experience that they will listen, they want to hear from you, and that they do care. And I'm thankful for the conversations we've had. And I'm hopeful that our line of communication will remain open and honest for the months and years ahead. I also want to take this moment to offer gratitude and thank someone that I have been very critical of. and that I may have given a tough time over the year, but that's Superintendent Dr. Denise Watts. Dr. Watts, yesterday when me and a colleague met with you, we felt very thankful. You were very welcoming. You were interested, and you were honest. I felt like we had very important and meaningful conversation. But most importantly, you showed us that you also reached for the same thing, which is respect for our teachers and the success for every student in Chatham County. At the end, you've asked that that me and you give each other grace moving forward, and I accept that wholeheartedly. Because grace doesn't mean just being silent. It means listening and working together, and it means finding an understanding. And I hope that we can keep building towards that, to meet that Savannah standard, a standard where teachers are heard, students are supported, and leadership is a collaboration. So I want to be wholeheartedly and say thank you. To teachers and community members, I ask that you keep showing up, speaking out, and pushing for the exceptional education system that Chatham County can provide. Respect for teachers, staff, and providing an excellent education for our students. At a year anniversary, I do believe we have members on this board, along with Superintendent Dr. Watts, who are willing to listen and are open to working together in order to reach the needs and the goals of this district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Seconded. All in favor?